If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 141. Near the workshop, Steven returned to his secret base with excitement, while Hikaru immediately headed back to the distortion world. There, the Pokémon had gathered around the still unconscious Scizor, knocked out cold by Giratina's tail swipe and yet to awaken. Lilligant stepped forward confidently, volunteering herself. She proudly claimed she had experience with this kind of situation. Last time, Doublade Senpai taught her CPR, and it worked wonders on someone who fainted. Right, trainer? Hikaru gave an awkward but polite smile. That wasn't real CPR. Next time, don't use it on me. And Doublade, stop teaching weird ancient methods. But, for someone who breaks the rules, it might be acceptable. For example, right now. Lilligant, use close combat on Scizor. Fighting-type energy gathered on Lilligant's leafy arms. Her leaves curled and built up power, then snapped forward explosively. Compression strike. Scizor had been deep in a nightmare, but that CPR in the form of close combat slammed him back to reality. Pain shot through his body, and even as a steel type, he felt it deeply. His eyes snapped open only to find himself surrounded by a group of Pokémon, and a human. Hikaru was just about to speak, but Scizor reacted quickly, springing to his feet and somersaulting away to a distant edge of the floating island. He assumed a defensive stance, but his body wasn't fully recovered. His legs buckled, and he fell to one knee. Doublade, use Psyblade, immobilize him. Hikaru issued the order succinctly. Doublade's eyes glowed with powerful psychic waves. Since the repairs to the Rock Mountain ruins, Doublade's control over Psyblade had reached terrifying precision. Countless sharp psychic threads surrounded Scizor, locking down his movements entirely. Scizor's body instantly froze. His condition was far from restored, and after Lilligant's close combat, he was in even more pain. The psychic threads around him radiated energy waves that made him too scared to move. Do you want to get stronger that badly? After becoming the strongest in the forest, what then? You don't just get free stuff. As payment, you'll need to work for me to pay for the damage you caused. Those rare candies and poke blocks weren't meant for you. The surrounding Pokémon stared at Scizor. Even Giratina floated in the air, emanating immense pressure. Doublade, what did he say? Through Doublade's translation, Hikaru learned Scizor's answer. He refused to work unless Hikaru could defeat him in battle. No. Even if I beat you, you still wouldn't willingly work for me, would you? Hikaru called out Scizor's bluff, making him break into a nervous sweat. But if I just keep talking big, there's nothing you can do to me. Are you afraid? Hikaru suddenly said something strange. Scizor's eyes widened in irritation. Afraid? He had a brave nature. He'd even punch that flying monster above them. Large bird Pokémon, and Aerodactyls. Hikaru crossed his arms, gazing through him. The root of your pursuit of strength is fear. Fear of reliving past trauma. That's why you cling to dominance in the outskirts of the forest, instead of venturing deep inside. How about this? I can make you stronger. But in return, you'll work for me. Sounds like a fair deal, doesn't it? I'm a mystical craftsman with powers. If you want to grow strong, just give it a try. Scizor. Scizor growled, irritated. He kept threatening Hikaru, insisting he wasn't scared of birds or dragons. Once he became the strongest in the forest, he'd crush them all. If Hikaru didn't believe him, they could fight again once he was healed. Here, drink this. It'll heal all your injuries. Hikaru pulled out a bottle of herbal juice from who knows where. Scizor blinked, hesitated, then took it and cautiously drank. He didn't worry about the human poisoning him. He'd already been captured, he had no means to resist anyway. The herbal drink warmed him from within. Old injuries from countless battles began to fade. A surge of vitality flooded his body, stronger than he'd ever felt, even compared to right after evolution. He was confident he could now go toe-to-toe with that shadow dragon again. He might even survive 2 hits from Dragon Tail. Scizor looked at Hikaru in disbelief. Why, give me something so good. All right. Now that you're healed, let's battle. Hikaru suddenly gave the order. Doublade and Lilligant were both eager to face Scizor. They'd regained their strength after restoring the Rock Mountain ruins and were itching to show this invader the might of their home. Turtwig. Turtwig stepped up with a battle cry too. He wanted to show how much he'd grown. But Scizor's eyes were only on Dowblade and Lilligant. He had first-hand experience of their strength. As for Turtwig, Scizor glanced at the small turtle. He remembered seeing it in the forest once. Humph, I may be ruthless and a thief, but that's all to gain strength and fight stronger foes. I don't bully weaklings, it's pointless and boring. Hikaru, all right. Turtwig, I choose you. Scizor. Stunned. Shocked. Confused. Then, insulted. Fuming, Scizor pointed at Turtwig, shook his head, then pointed at Dowblade and Lilligant and nodded. He didn't want to fight someone weak. Beating a small fry wouldn't feel right. What was this? Was his strength being underestimated? You'll know how strong Turtwig is, after the battle. Hikaru snapped his fingers. Watching a weak Pokémon grow strong now, that was the most direct proof of power. Solar Beam. Without warning, Turtwig flicked his head, and the powerful herb on his back pulsed. Even in the distortion world without a sun, there was still light. Turtwig absorbed the light. Solar Beam blasted out instantly. Scizor didn't even have time to react before the beam sent him flying. He crashed far off in the distance and climbed up, eyes wide in disbelief at the tiny turtle. This isn't right. I'm a steel type. How could a grass type move do this much damage? I underestimated you. Scizor got serious. He'd dismissed Turtwig as weak, but now he realized he was dead wrong. Fine then, bullet punch. A silvery fist launched with lightning speed, straight-line streaks of light accompanying the blow. Shell smash. Hikaru ordered casually. Turtwig shook his shell. A shell of energy shattered, boosting his speed dramatically. He dodged the bullet punch and darted around Scizor like a blur. Scizor was stunned. Growth. Turtwig's speed increased again. Scizor swung wildly, unable to touch him. Frustrated, he grew frantic. While using growth, combo it with stomp. Lilligant nervously cupped her cheeks. Lily. Use dance steps, okay? Turtwig replied while dashing. He had trained with Regirock and Unown, learning not only new moves, but also how to chain techniques for surprising results, something all strong Pokémon mastered. Like now, growth and stomp. Each step was a heavy stomp, booming like war drums. The ground shook with each slam. The shockwaves slowed Scizor's movements, stunning him. What kind of combo is this? Damn it, double team. Scizor split into multiple clones, all mimicking his motion. They spun their pincers and used brick break in wide sweeps. A violent gust tore across the island, but Turtwig leapt. Razor leaf. Leaves sharp enough to slice boulders flew through the air. They shredded every clone and nailed the real Scizor with a critical hit. Scizor stumbled, nearly falling. Turtwig hit the ground and launched again, stomping all 4 feet into Scizor's chest. He then used the chest as a springboard to initiate another growth. Hikaru didn't even give a command, but his eyes lit up watching Turtwig's fluid combo. Now mud shot. Though Solar Beam was powerful, Scizor's 4x grass resistance made it non-lethal. Without fire-type moves, the next best options were ground, rock, flying, and fighting-type attacks. And Turtwig had learned how to boost ground-type moves. Turtwig opened his mouth and blasted a surge of heavy mud. The ground-type energy in the mud was potent, blasting Scizor away and slamming him into a giant boulder, reducing it to rubble. Scizor wobbled, wide-eyed, emerging from the debris, then collapsed with spiraling eyes. Lilligant. Hikaru smiled. Wake him up. Use close combat. Lilligant smiled too, energy glowing on her leafy arms. Scizor, still unconscious, saw flashes of memories in his mind. Then pain hit him like a truck and jolted him awake. This time, he didn't leap up. He stayed down, eyes filled with reflection. After all his years of relentless fighting, he'd been taken down by a weak grass type. Even after evolving. Was all that fighting and training even worth it? Or, had his mindset been wrong from the start? Scizor began to reflect. He didn't understand how Turtwig could be so strong. Hikaru approached again. Scizor forced himself to sit up, but his eyes remained fixed on the little turtle who had bested him. Turtwig blushed under Scizor's intense gaze. So? I've become a little strong now? But please don't stare at me like that. Thank you for acknowledging me. Scizor. So? Do you realize your strength is lacking now? My offer still stands. This time, Scizor didn't object. With stubborn wild Pokémon, the best way to handle them was to beat them. Then they'd become more cooperative. Even this cunning Scizor was no exception. Sizz. What should I do to become as strong as that little turtle? Scizor asked voluntarily. This didn't mean he submitted to the human, it was just a necessary step toward power. Or so he told himself. Hikaru looked around. First, help Giratina by planting trees. How about that? Don't worry, I'll teach you how. Planting trees? Are you kidding me? How would that make me stronger? Scizor grumbled inwardly. He felt tricked. And this place didn't even have trees. Gray. Giratina pointed its tail at a floating island, one that now held many newly sprouted trees near the Gratitude Monument. Hikaru handed Scizor a shovel from who knows where. Just follow my method. You'll grow stronger. Scizor was still skeptical, but Giratina escorted him to the island. He tried planting a fruit tree. It didn't go smoothly, the distortion world's soil was barren. While the chaos was suppressed thanks to the monument, the soil was compact and full of issues. It was frustrating. He used to chop trees. One Scizor and down went a grove. But planting them? That was new. Weren't forests supposed to grow on their own? And was reforestation even necessary in this desolate world? He finally finished after quite some time. As for the shovel, it was useful, but awkward for a Pokémon. He eventually switched to using his pincers. To his surprise, Scizor discovered how efficient his pincers were at digging. As he worked, they began to glow with metallic light. Scizor has completed a task. Gained experience and growth. Move learned, Metal Claw. Tree planted, Convergence apple tree. In the distortion world, trees and fruit from the real world may behave differently. Sizz. Scizor felt a new power awaken. It was the same feeling he had when eating rare candies. So planting trees could make him stronger. Hikaru, that's right. Repeating the same task lets you master it and grow stronger. It's the same principle as your old training, only this time, growth only happens while working for me. The tree planting commission is long-term. Take your time. Giratina nodded enthusiastically. This Scizor works fast and well. Metal Claw is great for digging and planting, never thought of using it like that before. Yes, the world's first customer has done well. Reward, a chance to battle me. Hearing that, Scizor lit up. Really? Another chance to fight? Sizz. Then I'll work hard. Next time, I'll tank not just 2 but 3 dragon tails. This Scizor sets his own goals, hey. Hikaru nodded. And just like that, Scizor's issues were resolved. The distortion world now had its second Pokémon and an excellent greenery worker. At least until Aerodactyl or certain bird Pokémon showed up, Hikaru no longer had to worry about him. If psychological issues arose again, Unown could help with therapy by visualizing his inner mind, just like in that episode with Ash helping Larvitar. Childhood trauma could only be healed by Unown's mental guidance, or by confronting and overcoming it directly. Giratina was pleased. This guy's so easy to fool. A naturally battle-hungry young Pokémon, perfect to guide personally. To think you'd actually help that Scizor. I thought you'd ask for something outrageous to get revenge. Giratina shook its draconic head, and Dowblade jumped in. Their chosen trainer was someone meant to live in harmony with all Pokémon, building a kingdom where humans and Pokémon coexist. If a Pokémon had a problematic mindset, it had to be corrected with power first, then kindness. Can't suppress it, better to redirect it. That's how wild Pokémon are. After a good fight, they become much easier to handle. This way, it's punishment for him and a new helper for you. Win-win. Hikaru then looked curiously at Giratina. By the way, where did those trees come from? Are they apple trees? Giratina could peer into the real world through mirrors or lakes and use shadow powers to pull things into the distortion world. But its range was limited, such actions were rare. Giratina thought for a moment. Yes, they're from an area near Sinnoh. They grow a fruit called apples. And no, I didn't steal them. These apple trees were ownerless. Chapter 142. Since it was time to plant trees, ordinary ones simply wouldn't do. Fruit-bearing trees were the top priority. The soil of Sinnoh also contained patches suitable for berry trees, and wild fruit trees weren't exactly rare. Giratina originally planned to drag in every type of berry tree, but upon considering that the distortion world had no soft soil, Normal fruit trees would probably wither quickly even if brought in, not to mention, there was no sunlight here. In the growth cycle of plants, sunlight, rain, and fertilizer were indispensable. Giratina didn't know a thing about these, but after spying on the real world for so many years, it at least had a basic understanding. It had never eaten pork, but it had seen plenty of pork lovers. Humans often talked about these concepts while farming and carried them out diligently. So, all Giratina needed to do was imitate them. However, the lack of soft soil was still a tough issue. If it wanted to grow fruit trees, it had to find species that weren't picky about soil conditions. That's when Giratina found a type of fruit tree known as the apple tree. In a region near Sinnoh, there was a vast grove of apple trees. Some were cultivated by humans, those Giratina didn't touch. But it found a wild apple grove near a riverside, unmanaged and thriving. It yanked a few right out of the ground and brought them in. During the process, it even snatched a couple of apples and gave them a taste. "Thanks, Mother Nature. Pretty tasty. Kinda sweet too. Alright then, decision made, apple trees it is." Hikaru had a few questions. That region near Sinnoh, with its rivers and abundance of apple trees, could it be Kitakami? If so, then Giratina really had good taste. Kitakami apples were known for their high quality. Apple trees need relatively fertile soil. The ideal type is deep, loose, and rich sandy loam. This kind of soil offers good drainage and ventilation. Sunny spots with decent airflow should be prioritized. Avoid dark, damp, or low-lying areas. Hikaru started rambling on about the cultivation of apple trees. Giratina nodded at first, but soon its crimson dragon eyes started to squint drowsily. Its head suddenly jerked forward. Oops. Almost dozed off. "Alright, I get it, you're not interested," Hikaru sighed. Just a while ago, Giratina had boldly declared its intent to remake this world. Now, it was spacing out after barely listening to a bit of cultivation knowledge. As expected, no creature likes lectures, not even a legendary Pokémon. Giratina felt a bit ashamed. Was there a simpler way to understand and cultivate? There is. I already anticipated this problem, so I made a few more useful magical tools. There's a Pokémon called Calyrex. I crafted a statue of it. This statue can boost yield and rejuvenate barren land. You can pair it with your own statue. And there's this. Hikaru took out a finely made doll. Magical tool Calyrex doll. Just place this near the plants you want to grow and don't do anything else. Just imagine it has the power to make plants sprout and grow. Simply activate imagination mode. It's a dream item for lazy gardeners. Giratina's eyes lit up instantly, nodding its big head repeatedly. Yes. Exactly the kind of lazy man's artifact I wanted. Wait, did I just get insulted? Lilligant, Turtwig, I'll leave it to you to help that apple tree grow a bit faster. Lilligant and Turtwig went to the first apple tree that had been planted by Scizor. They used growth and mud shot. Lilligant had gained knowledge of mega growth in the dream world, which could accelerate plant maturation and improve fruit quality. Turtwig's mud shot could spray nutrient-rich soil thanks to its soil-neutralizing nature. Later on, with more types of soil collected, Turtwig might even be able to spit out region-specific soils with different nutrient profiles through mud shot. With help from the two Pokémon, the initially planted apple tree quickly began to change. Its leaves unfurled gently, and its roots anchored deeply into the floating island's surface. Hikaru picked up the small digging trowel that Scizor had tossed aside and began working on the soil underneath, while directing Scizor, who was still planting more trees. Don't just dig with metal claw, crush and turn the soil repeatedly, and add new fertilizer and enriched soil. Here, take these. Sweat began to bead on Scizor's forehead. It had agreed to work for this human, but to think there would be so many requirements. You're probably thinking I'm way too demanding, right? But this is all necessary when planting. This place isn't a naturally lush forest. In this barren land, each tree needs to be nurtured with care to survive. A tiny mistake and all your efforts go to waste. Hikaru tapped the ground with the trowel. Besides, if you use metal claw carefully, you might gain a unique understanding of the move. Oh, and when you encounter hard rocks or compacted soil, use bullet punch. Keep pounding it until the hard dirt becomes loose, breathable granules. Repeating this will increase your mastery over bullet punch, and its power might even improve. Scizor thought quietly for a moment, then silently began to follow the instructions. Giratina blinked. I think it's doing pretty well. Hikaru didn't hesitate to scold it, still far from enough. Since you won't learn, I have to make Scizor learn. After all, it's the one doing the actual planting. Giratina lowered its head, ashamed, mumbling quietly. So demanding. Is remaking this world really such a difficult task? There were countless floating islands here. If it had to transform all of them, the workload would be massive. If it were anyone else speaking to it like this, Giratina would have snapped back long ago and maybe even launched a will-o-wisp or two. But since it was Hikaru, whether due to closeness or other reasons, Giratina didn't want to lose its temper, and instead took the criticism seriously. Work is so tiring. That one grumble earned nods of agreement from Hikaru and every Pokémon around, even Scizor. Only Doublade's twin eyes turned to an expression of disdain. Straight face. You? Tired? You're not even the one planting. If your power could reach all the way to Hone, we might be able to bring back some volcanic ash. MT Chimney's volcanic ash is a famous fertilizer, rich in nutrients. I've bought some online before, but the quantity isn't nearly enough for these floating islands. Hone is too far. Sinnoh is the center of the world. The ash from MT Chimney is too distant, but I can get ash from Stark Mountain. Should be similar in effect. Giratina never thought it would one day care about volcanic ash, but according to Hikaru, there were lots of materials that could improve soil quality. Compared to ridiculous things like graveler skin, Landorus's tail, or stones from the Tree of Beginnings, or using Tapu Bulu as a laborer. Volcanic ash was the only thing available in large amounts and that could be used generously. The ash from Stark Mountain might differ a lot in quality, but it still contains the basic nutrients found in volcanic ash. It can work as a lesser alternative. MT Chimney's volcanic ash was so rich because of Groudon's influence. On the other hand, Stark Mountain was home to Hyatron. The two Pokémon differed greatly in strength. Hyatron was said to be a Pokémon formed from fragments of time and space, or born from the molten lava deep inside MT Coronet. Perhaps the volcanic ash it produced had its own unique qualities. Giratina opened a passage to Stark Mountain. Located in the northeastern part of Sinnoh, on a large island known as the Battle Zone, the mountain was surrounded by vast waterways. Giratina created a massive mirrored vortex on the water's surface, sucking large quantities of volcanic ash into the distortion world. Fortunately, it was nighttime. If this had been Unova, where it was daytime, such a sudden giant vortex might have drawn attention. The ash was sucked in and placed on a remote floating island. A small portion was sent to Hikaru. Well? Usable. Hikaru put on a mask and inspected the ash. Rare material, volcanic ash from Stark Mountain. Description: volcanic ash formed from eruptions at Stark Mountain. Rich in minerals, it enhances soil fertility and contains traces of Hyatron's power. Can improve soil quality. The ash is classified as a powder, usable in crafting volcano powder. Crafting recipe is: new knowledge gained, soil expansion. Improved soil will gradually spread to nearby areas, transforming them into new soil. A sufficient base amount of improved soil is required. If there's too little, the conversion will fail. Chapter 143. The key ingredient in the volcano powder recipe was, of course, volcanic ash. Next came ready-made fertilizer or materials like phosphate ore used to make fertilizer. Then there was nutrient-rich mud sprayed by Turtwig, which Lilligant dried out using Sunny Day. These dried mud blocks, infused with ground-type energy, were then ground into powder and mixed into the earlier volcanic fertilizer. If they could incorporate the power of a stronger ground-type Pokémon, and add in unique soil types like peat soil, the resulting volcano powder would become even more potent. Crafting process complete. Item: material volcano powder. Description: a unique powder made through powder crafting and soil science. It significantly boosts soil fertility, improves soil conditions, and accelerates plant growth. It can also be used as a nurturing item for ground, fire, and steel-type Pokémon. Simply carrying it will enhance their growth, and there's a small chance they may learn moves related to volcanoes. New material discovered: ancient soil, peat soil. Location: glacial ruins in Shinto Forest. Hikaru made a mental note of this new material's location. This time, it was surprisingly close right in the forest. Ancient soil peat soil was also the required item for Ursaring's evolution into Ursuluna. And the new knowledge was extremely useful. Hikaru spread the volcano powder onto the soil, and the effect was nearly instant. The once reddish-brown earth of the floating island slowly changed. Neutralized by the volcano powder, it transformed into a soft, special soil, perfectly suited for plant growth. Hikaru grabbed a handful of the improved soil. Material: fertile ruined soil. Description: soil discovered in the ruined world, distinct from ordinary soil. After special refinement, it has become ideal for planting berry trees or crops. Can be used in ruin crafting. Plants grown in this soil will exhibit traits of the ruined world. The improvement was a success. And since the new soil spreads and transforms nearby old soil, if we bury it across the floating island, this whole place will gradually come back to life. It'll become a fertile island where any crop can grow. Hikaru reported the results to Giratina. The old dragon, who refused to study, finally breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, it began scheming. Looks like it would need to sneak out and steal more volcanic ash every night. Hopefully, that Hiatron would keep working hard and let Stark Mountain erupt just a little every day. Oh, right, what about rain and sunlight? Rain wasn't an issue, Giratina could cause rain. But sunlight? It glanced at Lilligant, looking awkward, as if it wanted to say something but hesitated. Turtwig. Lilligant tilted her head, puzzled. I actually want to learn one of your moves. The move Giratina wanted to learn was Sunny Day, of course. Although there was no sun in the ruined world, Sunny Day could still create dazzling sunlight, though it required expending some of Giratina's own power. But that was no problem. In this world, Giratina had power to spare. Lilligant smiled and nodded, agreeing to teach Giratina. Why be shy? She'd be happy to teach Sunny Day. Let the whole world be filled with light. If I can manage that, it would be amazing. Giratina slipped into daydream mode. Once it fully mastered Sunny Day, it could unleash the sunlight over multiple floating islands, like sowing the sun itself. Oh, and it'd be best if the duration of Sunny Day could be extended, too. If you want to extend the duration, you should use a heat rock. This stone prolongs the effects of Sunny Day. If you build a louver box made from heat rock on every island, then each one can remain bright, sunny, and full of gentle wind. If you want rain, use damp rock. For sandstorms, use smooth rock. For snow, use icy rock. Place them on the floating islands, and then either you or a Pokémon with weather moves can adjust the climate. That way, you can recreate all 4 seasons of the real world here in the ruined world. Hikaru was painting a grand vision, but it was one that could genuinely be realized. Giratina's eyes gleamed with excitement. Even Scizor, still digging nearby, started to get caught up in the fantasy. Though Scizor didn't like this world and only worked here out of obligation, the vision Hikaru painted of transforming this barren and desolate world into a lush, vibrant new one sparked a strange sense of excitement and joy just thinking about it. Such a strange feeling. So, where do we find these rocks? Regirock, Hikaru said, snapping his fingers. That legendary giant who came with us last time, remember? Regirock is great at digging up stones and understands the properties and uses of various rocks. Yesterday, I helped it restore the Rock Mountain ruins. It plans to turn the ruins into a marketplace for Pokémon to trade. I'll send a mirror over for you, so you can trade directly with Regirock. Of course, it'll want something in return. What that is, you'll have to ask it yourself. Giratina suddenly had an epiphany. So this is what Pokémon helping Pokémon looks like. A legendary giant. Last time I only thanked it for bringing me a white stone. Who knew I'd need to ask for its help again? Once life and life begin to interact, more and more stories and bonds naturally arise. Hikaru then carved another statue of Calyrex on the island, offering yet more assistance to Giratina. By now, it was the latter half of the night and Hikaru and the Pokémon all went back to rest. Giratina gazed at the slowly transforming floating island and at the diligent Scizor still planting trees, eyes filled with visions of the island's beautiful future. For the first time ever it looked forward to the future. The next morning, Hikaru awoke under the sunlight. A bit of a pity they hadn't entered the dream world last night. After packing up, Hikaru headed for the Rock Mountain ruins. Steven had been waiting near the forest since early morning, as today was the day he'd arranged to go mining with Regirock. Metagross greeted Hikaru, proactively asking if there was anything it could help with. The usually cold steel-type Pokémon suddenly acting so warmly caught Hikaru off guard, but Dowblade casually struck up a conversation with Metagross, saying the workshop planned to expand its greenhouse. Since its trainer was off mining with the rock golem, why not come help out at the workshop? Metagross readily agreed. After all, working with Hikaru was the best way to get stronger. If it wanted to return to the top-tier spotlight, it needed to seize this opportunity on its Shinto adventure. When the two humans and their Pokémon arrived at the Rock Mountain ruins, they found a crowd of rock-type Pokémon gathered there. Upon seeing Hikaru and Steven, the Pokémon didn't attack, but began whispering among themselves, much to Steven's surprise. "They're talking about us. They know what we've done. They're thanking us for restoring the ruins and creating a safe haven where rock-type Pokémon can grow peacefully." Hikaru translated through Dao Blade, explaining things to Steven. They never imagined that the two of them had already become celebrities in the Pokémon world. The rock types enthusiastically gathered around them, prompting Steven to flash a helpless smile. "I've dug up a lot of rocks before, but it's the first time I've been so popular with rock Pokémon." It was all thanks to Hikaru. Steven didn't think he'd contributed all that much. The harmony between humans and Pokémon was what made the forest feel so warm. That was what this mysterious craftsman had been striving for. Spending time with humans often involved complex issues of interest and gain, but Pokémon were different. Most were simple at heart. If they liked you, they liked you. Good was simply good. No strings attached. Regirock's voice echoed from within the temple. Surrounded by rock-type Pokémon, Hikaru and Steven entered the ruins only to freeze the moment they laid eyes inside. Behind the stone bar stood a giant orange-grey bear, awkwardly hunched like a child caught misbehaving. It looked pitiful, yet didn't dare make a sound. Only when Hikaru and Steven walked in did its eyes shine with renewed light. Gotchi. Chapter 144. Ursuluna. No, this was Blood Moon Ursuluna. And not just any Ursuluna, it was a shiny one. The answer that Hikaru had previously dismissed was now standing before him in the most extraordinary way possible. There was no way not to be shocked. He even subconsciously prepared to draw out a sticky ball, his battle-ready reflex causing Dao Blade to twitch slightly. Was he really about to use that? Gagachi. Blood Moon Ursuluna quickly raised its claws and waved them, signaling that it had no intention of fighting. Hikaru also quickly realized if this Ursuluna was the same one that had once destroyed the Rock Mountain ruins, then why was it here now? He turned to the legendary giant with a puzzled look. The H symbol on Regirock's face flashed as it raised its rocky arm and pointed at the giant bear. Gi. This guy came by last night looking for you. Not only did it destroy the Rock Mountain ruins earlier, but now it's gone and smashed my desk too. Everyone's gaze shifted toward a corner of the ruins, where a pile of shattered stone furniture lay. This Pokémon is... Steven mused aloud. Hikaru answered, Regirock confirmed it. This is the Pokémon that used earth power to destroy the temple. I still don't know how it came back. Steven frowned. I've never seen a Pokémon like this. Is this the Ursuluna? Not exactly. It's a mutated variant of Ursuluna and it's shiny. That said, this particular Ursuluna, Blood Moon Ursuluna, was extremely rare. There was supposed to be only one in existence, and it should only appear in a place called Kitakami. Could it be that the forests of Shinto extended endlessly, perhaps even connecting with Kitakami's timeless woods? The deeper one ventured, the harsher the environment became. Could they be gradually approaching an ecosystem like Kitakami's? Blood Moon Ursuluna let out a low whimper. Its stomach rumbled with hunger, and it drooped its head, looking dejectedly at Hikaru. It clearly didn't have the strength to move anymore. You came looking for me? But we don't know each other, Hikaru asked. Ursuluna growled twice, then turned to Regirock, hoping the giant could help translate. And from this brief exchange, Hikaru could tell this Ursuluna hadn't lived since ancient times. At the very least, it wasn't as old as the one from Kitakami. It wasn't an ancient Pokémon. With Regirock's translation, Hikaru finally understood why Ursuluna had come here. It had been guided by the forest god. Celebi led you to me? In that case, I can't ignore your request. Upon receiving Hikaru's confirmation, Ursuluna's frown finally relaxed. It visibly perked up, excitedly baring its teeth and claws as it explained its situation to Hikaru. It was searching for the earth plate. But that plate was guarded by the steel giant and it was no match for it. So it had come to ask Hikaru to forge a tool or weapon that could help defeat the steel giant. As for why it needed the earth plate, Ursuluna let out a sigh, and its face turned gloomy again. In the deepest part of the Shinto forest, there was a valley. The forest stretched far into distant mountains, filled with towering trees and root-formed caves. Ursuluna had lived peacefully in that valley, revered by weaker Pokémon as a mountain deity. But one day, the land began to die, vegetation withered on a massive scale. Even with the combined efforts of grass-type Pokémon, they couldn't revive it. To stop things from getting worse, Ursuluna had gone in search of the plate. Ever since it evolved, it could feel the earth plate calling to it. The legends said the plate could restore barren land to life. Although it hadn't needed the plate before, perhaps it had foreseen this moment long ago. So it's a problem with the land. And by the steel giant, you mean Registile. Being able to sense the plate made sense after all. In his way, Ursuluna served as one of Arceus's plate guardians and held immense ground-type power. Being drawn to the plate was natural. Hikaru nodded, but his expression turned to stone the moment he heard Ursuluna describe the steel giant wielding a hammer. Even Steven, who only understood bits and pieces, fell into deep thought. Mr. Brandon has a Registile, but I've never heard of a Pokémon using weapons before. In Paldea, there are some Pokémon known to use large tools. Steven rubbed his chin thoughtfully, recalling old rumors. There were Pokémon that fought with gear, Farfetch'd and its leak, Hypno with its pendulum, and Conkeldurr swinging concrete pillars in Unova. But a hammer? That was pushing things. That Pokémon could sit at the same table as Conkeldurr. Regirock, however, seemed excited. It had sensed that the other two giants might awaken soon. It even planned to invite them to visit its temple. As for that hammer, it was made of legendary black steel. Originally, Registile's body had been forged under immense underground pressure over tens of thousands of years, making it harder than any known metal. This mysterious metal, forming Registile's body, was called black steel, and it actually originated from special molten lava. Long ago, Registile had taught humans how to forge, ushering in the Iron Age. The hammer had been made by Registile itself from its own body. I've heard legends of the legendary giants. Supposedly, they were created by the mythical Pokémon Regigigas, using materials from ancient icebergs, rocks, and molten lava. Steven began explaining, recounting a legend from Sinnoh. The Snowpoint Temple in Sinnoh is said to still hold those three original materials. At Steven's reminder, Hikaru recalled something from the anime. In the Snowpoint Temple, where Regigigas rested, there were three pillars, the Ice Pillar, Rock Pillar, and Steel Pillar. And fittingly, in later generations, the king of the colossal pillars, Regigigas, could learn Crush Grip. Perhaps when creating Registile, it had used that move to compress various minerals in the lava into ultra-dense black steel. Three special materials: Never Melt Ice, Hard Stone, and Magma Stone. Hikaru muttered. Looking back at the clearly starving Ursuluna, he pulled out some food from his bag. Besides some handy poke blocks, he also had ingredients for lure balls. Since Ursuluna was a ground type, it would do well with terabyte food. Ursuluna gobbled down the terabyte food. In the next instant, its eyes flew wide open and it stood tall. The essence of the earth surged through its body the moment it consumed the food. It could feel its strength swell. It could now sense and absorb the power of the earth beneath its feet. It had never experienced this state before. And then it looked at Hikaru with completely new eyes. So, this was the human blessed by the forest god. Oh, and one more thing, Hikaru said. You might not even need the earth plate to restore the land. I just happen to have the right tools and crafting techniques. I think my Pokémon and I can help. That's what we're best at. Gachi. No need for the plate? Could that really be true? Ursuluna froze, stunned by what seemed like a wild claim. But after remembering the effect of the food it had just eaten, it began to see this mysterious human artisan in a whole new light. If he really had such tools, then there was no need to fight Registile. But, what if it didn't work? Ursuluna growled softly, expressing that it was willing to offer something in return. For example, to apologize to Regirock, it had already brought a bunch of stones. And as for a more valuable item, wait. Ursuluna clapped its paws together as it recalled a certain object. Back in its valley, there was something left behind by a human long ago. It looked like a huge stone wheel with 4 sharp prongs, tinged with faded gold, not painted, but naturally beautiful. The stone always radiated a calming energy that brought good fortune to the valley's Pokémon. But other than that, it hadn't had much use. The Pokémon didn't know what it was for, but maybe this human could use it. At the very least, it wasn't some ordinary rock. If Hikaru needed it, he could have it. On the topic of stones, Hikaru also passed along Giratina's request to Regirock. If you dig up any weather-type rocks, please bring them to me. Chapter 145. Another rare stone. Stephen's eyes lit up instantly. But when he saw Hikaru's speechless expression, he quickly reined in his enthusiasm and gave an awkward cough. He couldn't help it, just hearing about a valuable stone made his instincts as a gemstone collector go wild. And now there was news about the steel-type titan, and even a legendary material, black steel. Stephen wanted nothing more than to see it with his own eyes. If possible, it'd be best to buy it. All they had to do was defeat Registile, right? Stephen averted his gaze but quickly zeroed in on the pile of gift stones Blood Moon Ursuluna had brought. What were those stones? He didn't recognize them. Stephen was overjoyed he had harvested more new stones during this one trip to Shinto than he could in 6 months of digging around Hone. He crouched to study the unfamiliar rocks. Hikaru also glanced over and immediately noticed, despite their plain appearance, now that he had mastered the secrets of rocks and advanced geology, he could tell these stones were anything but ordinary. He walked over and picked one up. Rare material, grit rock. Description: a seemingly ordinary rock that possesses mysterious power. It is a miraculous stone capable of raising a Pokémon's grit level. Hikaru muttered, This is a grit rock. Stephen blinked. Hey? You recognize it too? Again, yeah, I do. It's a strange kind of stone. Its effect is, well, pretty similar to those wood carvings I sell in my shop. Stephen's expression turned serious. So you're saying these stones are extremely valuable then? He frowned, realizing he might not have anything worthy to trade for them. These grit rocks had to be brought back to Devon Corp. And Hikaru's knowledge, it was incredible. He always seemed to stumble upon rare stones. Could it be that when it came to digging, Hikaru's luck stat was maxed out? Maybe their meeting really was destiny. Hikaru was also deep in thought. Grit rocks enhanced a Pokémon's grit level, which was essentially a boost in effort values and base stats. It was an incredibly powerful special item. Hikaru clicked his tongue in surprise. Who would have thought Blood Moon Ursuluna could bring something like this from the forest depths? If this was just a gift, then what about that larger, more abstract stone Ursuluna had mentioned? Could it be a giant grit boulder? Hikaru couldn't be sure what that big stone was, but he was certain it wasn't an evolutionary stone. And it didn't resemble a moss rock or ice rock either. Alright, just to be safe, we should try talking to Registile first, see if it's willing to help, Hikaru said, turning to Stephen. He then glanced at Ursuluna and asked, Didn't you tell it the land was in trouble? Or did you leave that part out? Gotchi. Ursuluna scratched its head. Of course it said that, but Registile just tapped its hammer on the ground and said something cryptic like, if you want it, come and get it. Basically, it refused to help. Regirock began to think. Rock types were often thought of as brainless, but Regirock frequently pondered practical matters. Now, it had a theory, perhaps Registile wasn't giving up the earth plate because it wanted to create or and alter the surrounding geological environment. Long ago, Registile had done just that. It was the one who taught ancient humans how to enter the Iron Age. But its personality was stubborn. Maybe it missed the old settlements, or maybe it simply wanted to forge again. High-quality steel. Now it was Hikaru's turn for his eyes to sparkle. High-grade steel was essential for raising steel-type Pokémon. If Registile really had that intention, then its black steel temple wasn't just a ruin, it was a natural steel refinery. It might even be able to create a special new metal, not just black steel, but something like composite alloy. I have to become friends with it. Hikaru muttered to himself. If Regirock's temple could become a stone trading hub, then it could provide various ancient rocks and minerals. Meanwhile, the Black Steel Temple could process those ores quickly and efficiently. So what would the Ice Temple be capable of? Could Regis be a sculptor? Or maybe, a giant refrigeration unit? That thought made Hikaru consider the destruction crafting technique. Couldn't they use it now? If the earth plate could indeed alter geological conditions, then maybe they could even move land and buildings, just like the myth of Regigigas dragging continents with ropes. Combining various crafting techniques and special items could create miracles. Hikaru was already envisioning the results. Maybe they could even make shortcut paths by using maze-making techniques. And if he could catch a Melmetal, that would be perfect. That Pokémon was revered for its ability to produce high-grade iron. The Black Steel Ruins. Inside the temple, Registile was organizing various leftover facilities. Unlike Regirock's bare-bones Rock Mountain ruins, this place held countless ancient forging tools, anvils, massive hammers, crucibles, files, tongs, fire pits, molds, and even ancient charcoal that had long turned to ash. The central giant statue had been converted into a massive steel furnace. Despite being a steel-type Pokémon, Registile showed no fear of fire, something that would leave any other steel-type Pokémon stunned. Beside the furnace lay a palm-sized, light brown slab, the earth plate. It was radiating energy. Registile stared at it, lost in thought. This item had been passed down since mythic times, originating from the Shinto temple, which must now be in ruins itself. With this plate, it could continuously generate forgeable ore in the temple's surroundings. Even if the forging-loving humans were long gone, the temple still stood. Registile felt a pang of loneliness. As an immortal Pokémon, its lifespan stretched endlessly. But the humans it once taught were long dead. The friends who learned blacksmithing from it were all gone when it awoke again. The emptiness, the fury, the helplessness, it all weighed on its heart, driving it close to losing control. Even the steel furnace wouldn't ignite anymore. The charcoal was all useless. It had to get the temple running again. If no humans needed it anymore, and it had no work, no purpose, then it would burn down the forest and convert the land into layers of mineable iron. It would wait until humans returned. No Pokémon were allowed near. Beep beep beep. The symbols on Registile's face flashed as it sensed a familiar, powerful aura. It immediately grabbed its hammer and walked out of the temple, only to find that Giant Bear had returned, this time with backup. Humans. Registile spotted Hikaru and Steven. But its gaze quickly focused on Hikaru. Something about him felt familiar. Just like those old blacksmiths. You are a smith too? So that's Registile, and it's really carrying a hammer. Hikaru muttered, slightly stunned. That Titan hammer probably wasn't legal. Beep beep beep. Regii. Registile glared at Regirock beside Blood Moon Ursuluna, clearly shocked. Was its fellow Titan really consorting with a wild Pokémon to attack its temple? And what's with Regirock's appearance? It looked like it was cosplaying Regigigas with all that glowing moss on its body. Registile, we want to borrow the earth plate. We can trade you special tools for it. What do you need? Hikaru stepped forward to negotiate, with Regirock trying to help persuade. But after Registile's face symbols flashed rapidly, it gripped its hammer even tighter. If you want it, then earn it. Regirock shrugged. Welp, negotiations failed. Looks like it still wanted to settle things by force. As expected, its stubborn nature wouldn't allow compromise. Mr. Steven, do you have any advice for battling steel types? Hikaru turned to the steel type expert. Most people think steel types are just defensive, Steven began. But if that defensive energy is channeled into offense, it can be terrifying. He studied the unique Titan before them. A trainer I know has a Registile. During battles, it concentrates its steel energy. Its body is extremely tough. No matter how hard you hit, it won't get hurt. But it's slow. Steel types are weak to ground, fighting, and fire, but from what Ursuluna said, this Registile is no ordinary one. Ground and fire won't work. Fighting, then. Steven glanced at that massive hammer again. Unarmed versus armed, was a huge gap. Boom boom. Regirock suddenly stepped forward, showing its will to fight. This was the first time it had shown such intent since meeting Hikaru. Rock-type moves won't do much to steel types, Steven noted. But wait, Regirock knows body slam. Hikaru's eyes lit up too. Then it's settled. I'm counting on you, Regirock. Regii. Regirock raised its arms. After so many days at the workshop, its strength had grown far beyond what it was 1,000 years ago. Now, it was ready to face its fellow Titan in battle. Take this, Steven said, pulling out a special stone from his belt. It looked slightly scorched. Hikaru was confused, and Steven smiled as he explained. Regirock can use rock to repair itself by absorbing its energy. I think this stone might help. It's a meteorite fragment. Devancorp obtained it from meteor falls, and it's a powerful energy source. Hikaru took the fragment. It felt slightly warm to the touch. Another rare item from the games. And just in case, Hikaru pulled out a life orb. Chapter 146. The life orb, a held item that boosts the power of a Pokémon's moves by around 30%, but at the cost of 10% of its maximum HP each time it lands an attack. In battle, it's a formidable item but also a double-edged sword. If given to a Pokémon with recovery abilities, it becomes incredibly powerful. But for those without recovery moves, it means gambling everything on overwhelming offense, striking first, striking hard, before they go down. In real-world combat, the Life Orb's side effect translates into a simultaneous drain on stamina and endurance. Once its energy is spent, the Pokémon can no longer continue fighting. Steven frowned. The Life Orb, but how will Regirock even carry it? Hikaru responded, Dow Blade, use Brick Break on Regirock's back. Carve out a slot. Doublade's blades gleamed as it slashed a small cavity into Regirock's back. Hikaru slipped the Life Orb inside. It almost felt like inserting a hidden power core. He paused in thought, then pulled out 2 berries, one red, one green, and shoved them in as well. Lastly, he sealed the slot using the meteorite fragment Steven had provided. Shashashari Regiaini. The Life Orb and meteorite fragment combo surged through Regirock, massively boosting its rock-type energy. The sense of power swelling within was undeniable. Beep 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 Regiath. Registile hadn't expected Regirock to challenge it. Of the 3 titans, only it possessed a weapon. What's more, Steel had the type advantage over Rock. Registile figured Regirock must have been sleeping too long and lost its mind. Fine, then time to show the difference between them. Focus Punch. Brilliant white light condensed on Registile's massive hammer as it gathered energy. A shockwave blasted out around it, swirling upward like a thunderous peak. Focus Punch was a mighty fighting-type move, requiring full mental focus and a steady stance to unleash. It was one of the most powerful attacks all 3 titans knew on par with superpower. But Registile had trained with humans for ages, learning to channel aura through its hammer and evolution of the technique. This wasn't just Focus Punch or some mega hammer. Hikaru watched, wide-eyed. Was Registile charging up ki like a martial artist? Was it secretly some kind of fighting monk? Maybe it could even craft fighting spirit cloth for him? Stone Edge. Hikaru called. Regirock's H symbol flickered. Jagged rocks formed around it like a planetary ring, spinning twice before shooting forward at incredible speed. Registile swung its hammer to smash the incoming rocks, but they were too many. It managed to block the first wave, but more kept coming. Its first Focus Punch was disrupted. Beep beep beep. The Stone Edge was stronger than expected. Registile realized the attack force was unnaturally powerful. Regirock shouldn't have had this much bite. Now, Iron Defense. Hikaru followed up, beginning the classic tank strategy. Regirock's body gleamed with silver light, each flicker boosting its defense further. Registile wasn't phased. It planted its hammer into the steel floor and also activated Iron Defense. Now it's a defense contest between 2 giants. Steven chuckled. This is turning into an endurance match. But with the Life Orb, Regirock was technically at a disadvantage. Each attack cost it energy. The Life Orb maximized its potential, but at a cost, like unlocking dangerous strength that burns from within. No problem. Time to use that move, Hikaru muttered. Use Body Press. Iron Defense and Body Press, a staple combo for tank-style Pokémon. This strategy converts defensive power into offense, a technique used by top-tier trainers. In fact, Byron the Canalave gym leader in Sinnoh was famous for it. His Bastiodon, a Pokémon with terrible attack stats, became a nearly impenetrable wall using this method. But while that combo took years of training, Body Press bypassed all that, calculating damage based on defense rather than attack. The higher the defense, the more damage dealt. Regirock's H symbol flashed. It launched itself at Registile, body tilted, gathering all its fortified strength. Bam! 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 Registile staggered back 3-4 steps. Beep beep beep. That strike had hurt. Registile was shocked. This move was different from anything it had faced before, and when did Regirock gain this much strength? Regirock's base defense is 200, Hikaru whispered to himself. With Iron Defense, that stat was boosted sky high. Even though Registile also used Iron Defense, that Body Press still hit hard. Still, as Steven noted earlier, no matter how much Registile got hit, you could barely see a scratch. Its body was one of the greatest masterpieces created by Regigigas. The Steel Titan shifted its weight and raised its hammer again. Focus Punch. This time the strike landed squarely. Regirock nearly flew from the sheer impact. Cracks spidered across its rocky body. A hurricane of aura followed the hit, rippling out like a tidal wave blasting across the battlefield. Even Blood Moon Ursuluna wiped a bead of sweat from its brow. That was the same move that nearly gave it a concussion the first time. Beep 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 beep. Registile raised its hammer high in celebration, basking in its apparent victory. Forged through endless years of hammering, its strength could shatter mountains and crush diamonds. Even if Regirock was also a titan, this time it had no hope. Surely it couldn't. Regi. Regirock stomped the steel floor, roaring with battle fury. Beep beep beep. Regi. Registile's lights flashed in disbelief. Regirock had taken that full force hit and it was fine. No way. Beep beep beep. Registile demanded, how did you block that? Brother, you've changed. Steven raised a brow. What were those berries you gave it earlier? Hikaru clenched his fist. A shuka berry and a chopple berry. The first reduces super effective steel damage, the second reduces fighting damage. Both are rare berries only found in Sinnoh and Shinto. That explains it. Steven nodded. Hikaru shrugged. I didn't know if that hammer was a steel type or fighting type move, so I came prepared. Registile glanced at the two humans, then at Regirock. No matter, it would strike again. But... Thunder wave. Hikaru pointed. Regirock raised both arms. A tiny electric current shot out, striking Registile. Its hammer dropped to the floor, body trembling. Paralysis. Body press, again. Regirock rammed forward, landing a solid elbow straight to Registile's face. Beep 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 beep. Yohu Dowblade gave a strange look. Was the Steel Titan cursing? Well, sort of. Since it was from ancient times, it hadn't exactly mastered modern swearing, just muttering traitor and other soft phrases. After being hit twice, Registile wasn't going to just sit there. It raised both arms to shield its face. Suddenly, a blast of silvery steel energy enveloped it. Steven called it. That's Iron Head. Just like Mr. Shinde's Registile. When using steel-type moves, it condenses the energy into a single point and channels it across its body. From the look of it, it was pretty intimidating. If you didn't know better, you might think it was Meteor Assault. But nope, it was Iron Head. It took off like a steel rocket, crashing toward Regirock. Protect! Hikaru ordered. Regirock crossed its arms, unleashing a green barrier. Registile slammed into it with a thunderous crash. Chunks of rock scattered, but the Protect didn't fully block the hit. Protect failed to hold. Hikaru grimaced. Just like in the anime battle at the Battle Pyramid when Paul's Electivire used Protect against Brandon's Regirock's Stone Edge, the force overwhelmed it anyway. In this world, Protect wasn't as absolute as in the games. It depended on the Pokémon's conditioning and endurance. If their stamina or strength was lacking, or the difference in power was too great, Protect could fail. The Life Orb enhanced Regirock's power output, but it drains its stamina. That's probably why Protect didn't fully hold. Regirock stumbled backward, steel floor screeching beneath its feet. Hikaru watched Registile's charging attacks and suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Wait, when Registile used Iron Head, it floated briefly like a rocket. In the air. Gravity! Hikaru shouted. A surge of psychic force erupted from Regirock. An invisible gravity field expanded, yanking Registile down mid-attack. Boom! The Steel Titan slammed face first into the ground, denting the temple floor. Now iron defense, then body press. Seizing the moment, Regirock ramped up its defense once more, then slammed into Registile with all its might. Registile tried to get up but only made it halfway before Regirock came down hard on its back. Bang! The sound of metal being struck thundered out. It was a critical hit. The floor's dent deepened. Registile's arms went limp. It collapsed fully, completely losing the ability to battle. Chapter 147. Event. Starting as a Class 5 mutant finish line. Beautiful battle. That really showed me the power of body press. Steven could clearly see that Hikaru's continuous use of body press wasn't just about dealing damage to Registile, it was to demonstrate the might of this new move firsthand. Undoubtedly, even though Regirock is a rock-type Pokémon, when used by steel-type Pokémon with high defense, the move's potential would be even greater. Hikaru stepped over the defeated Registile. The Titan's hammer had been terrifying, but with the help of special berries, its overwhelming force was cleverly neutralized. This world was full of wondrous items that play critical roles in battles and training. The Earth Plate. Got it. Hikaru walked over to the giant furnace and picked up the light brown tablet. Mythical artifact, Earth Plate. Description: A plate infused with ground-type energy. When held, it boosts the power of ground-type moves. Acquired professional knowledge. 1. Geologist. People of the earth can perceive the energy flow within the land, awaken the power of the earth, and increase friendliness with ground-type Pokémon. Unlocked unique craft. 1. New mysterious craft unlocked. 1. / Mystic ground craft. S. Description: a unique craft that connects all things in the world. It allows important locations to be linked through shortcuts, turning them into livable hubs. It reads ley lines and rearranges their flow through positional combinations, establishing new networks. Requires the area to have ley lines or dragon veins to enhance its wonder. Required, already acquired destruction craft, hidden power, awakening power, environmental sculpting craft, ancient architecture craft, ruin sculpting craft, orb making craft. Potential requirements: not yet acquired town development craft, Kalos, dream link knowledge, Unova, ultra wormhole craft, Alola. Once the above 3 are acquired, the mystic ground craft can not only link key areas, but also connect to the dream world and other special dimensions. Mystic item hint: ancient charm related location, Valley of Light, Blood Moon Ursuluna's hometown. Required materials: jade, black jade, lapis jade, rare bones. Pokémon fossils also requires protection charm. Hikaru staggered as all this information poured into his mind. When he finally recovered, his first reaction was that battle was absolutely worth it. Mystic ground craft, what kind of technique was this? So many prerequisites. Just from the name, Hikaru guessed it probably originated from some dungeon world. In short, it had to be a super technique for building a special paradise. As for the ancient charm, it was something Hikaru was familiar with. In the Sinnoh game, Champion Cynthia gives the protagonist a strange bone charm to deliver to her grandmother in Celestic Town. It was merely a plot item, but its true function was mysterious. In Hisui, however, similar charms existed like the beloved Substitute Charm, Health Charm, and Safety Charm. The Substitute Charm prevented item loss, the Health Charm blocked status conditions, and the Safety Charm made it harder to faint. Against wild Pokémon, they were like protective shields. And that new profession knowledge. People of the Earth. That was from one of the movies. A nation said to carry part of Unova's founding legend. The people of the Earth could harness dragon veins invisible, massive flows of energy across the land. Stable dragon veins created peaceful kingdoms where humans and Pokémon could live. But if they went out of control, the energy would vanish, turning the land into a lifeless grey wasteland. In the movie, the dragon veins collapse was caused by the clash between the heroes of truth and ideals, and the war between Reshiram and Zekrom, which ultimately doomed the Earth People's Kingdom. Hikaru realized this knowledge might complement what he learned from Steven the guidance pattern knowledge. If he could learn to awaken dragon veins. After storing the plate, he looked over to find Steven studying the ores inside the temple. Meanwhile, Dowblade was playfully tapping Registile with its ribbons, and Lilligant was poking at its body, marveling at its durability. "This is the black steel hammer," Hikaru said, attempting to lift it, and was surprised that it didn't feel as heavy as expected. Was it because his forging skills had boosted his strength and stamina? Legendary tool, Black Steel Great Hammer. Description: a heavy-duty forge hammer created by Registile, the black steel Pokémon. Made with the same mysterious material as its own body, formed by melting rare ores in magma and combining them in precise proportions. The recipe is known by Regigigas. Effects: Steel type and Fighting type move power plus 20%. Forging efficiency and quality plus 100%. Too big for me, though. It's not practical for daily use. Still, this was an incredible buff for forging, enhancing both crafting and battle potential. Steel and Fighting type Pokémon like Lucario or Zamazenta would benefit greatly. Gotchi. Blood Moon Ursuluna walked over, sweating nervously. It looked at Regirock, then at Hikaru. That rocky titan was strong before, but not this strong. Good thing it ran away last time, or it would have been flattened in that black steel temple fight. Gotchi, gotchi. Thanks a lot, Rock Giant. You've got a kind heart. I hope you stay that way. Please love all Pokémon. Ursuluna solemnly patted Regirock's arm. Beep beep beep. Registile's voice suddenly rang out as it regained consciousness. Hikaru had his Pokémon help lift it off the ground. It had a round head, and once it hit the floor, it was basically stuck. Its lead face blinked slowly as it stared at Hikaru. It had no facial features, but its emotions could be felt. It was deeply dejected and in disbelief. Among the three titans, it was the toughest and most unyielding. Registile shouldn't have been stronger. I lost. Registile waved a hand dismissively, utterly disheartened. Forget it. The Black Steel Temple's flames were never going to burn again. The dream of turning the earth into a vast smelting zone over. Registile tried to cheer it up. Don't be like that. Face reality. I've got a new career plan. Let's go find Regis and open a little shop in the woods. I mine, you forge, will rebuild the glory of the temple together. But Hikaru didn't speak. Instead, he pulled out some polishing tools from his backpack. Registile was confused until Hikaru began sanding and repairing its body. A wave of unimaginable comfort rippled through its steel shell and seeped into its core. What is this technique? Since its creation, not even its father Regigigas had ever polished it with such skill. Chapter 148. Ta-da! Job's done. Hikaru struck a dramatic pose, raising one arm and spreading his fingers as if showcasing a masterful work of art. And what he was presenting was, of course, Registile. The Steel Titan's body had been polished to a spotless shine. What was once a dull metallic exterior now gleamed like a mirror, so reflective that the faces of both Pokémon and people could be seen warped in its curved surface, turning into giant, stretched-out plates that looked hilariously silly. Yo! Dao Blade tapped at Registile's surface with its ribbon. Too smooth. It couldn't even get a grip. Beep beep beep. Registile's circular lead face flashed a round sequence. Its hands waved awkwardly, clearly trying to express just how amazed it was by Hikaru's craftsmanship. Though it was a black steel Pokémon with a body hard enough to never show damage, even metal had a fatigue limit. Go beyond that, and the material weakens. Normally its incredible durability and regeneration rate would mask that. Until now. Never before had Registile felt this relaxed and refreshed. Power surged from within. It felt like it had returned to the moment it was first created. Shally Registile waved its stone arm. So, feeling better now, bro? That craftsman is a mysterious blacksmith living nearby. His skills surpass even the ancient people of Hisui. He's like their true successor. His enhancements work wonders on us titans. Beep beep beep. Registile was confused at first, then suddenly enlightened. If that's the case, no wonder I lost. Still, what a shame. With this kind of power standing before me, I can't protect the earth plate anymore. And my dream of turning this land into an iron production zone, it's over, just a fantasy. Don't be so down. Hikaru patted the towering metal monolith. Honestly, your plan to change the entire geological structure was pretty dangerous. Did the ancient people of Hisui do something like that? Beep beep beep. Registile nodded. Yes, back in its active era, those who held the earth plate did do such things. They transferred fertile lands over and transformed the environment to support human life. After all, the natural climate and terrain of Hisui were harsh. Even Pokémon struggled to survive here without fighting each other. The people had to reshape the earth just to make it livable. But drastically altering the land, if the Black Steel Temple is built entirely on iron ore, then overmining would cause the ground to collapse. Removing too much ore weakens the structure and could lead to sinkholes or groundwater flooding. The temple might even cave in. And if there's too much iron, it'll oversaturate the soil, making it acidic that kills roots, slows growth, even wipes out plant life. Nature has its limits. Cross them, and bad things happen. Registile's circular LEDs flickered. It didn't really understand all that, it just wanted to revive the glory of its temple. But the idea of the temple collapsing made it uneasy. It's understandable. Without this knowledge, it's easy to make dangerous mistakes. The ancients could do those things because they knew the land and made proper plans. Hikaru placed a hand on Registile's body, sensing its regret and confusion. He snapped his fingers. How about I teach you a unique forging craft? Beep beep beep. Registile had always sensed that Hikaru, like itself, was a fellow artisan. Now that Hikaru offered to teach it special techniques, the previously despondent titan lit up with energy. Not that its expression ever changed. He cheered up quick. Is he, a workaholic? Sensing this shift in emotion, Hikaru just smiled and got to work. He rummaged through the temple and found some ancient forging tools clearly left behind by the old temple builders. Once, long ago, this temple really had been a giant smithy. The technique Hikaru would teach Registile was flame forging, one of his earliest and most reliable techniques. While Registile watched, Hikaru pulled out a stone box. Inside were glowing hot charcoal pieces, which he poured into the forge. Beep beep beep. Not enough charcoal? This isn't ordinary charcoal, Hikaru replied. It's blazing charcoal made from the massive trees of Petalburg woods, using a special firing method. Hotter, longer lasting. Lilligant, use weather ball fire. The elegant Pokémon summoned an illusory sun inside the forge. Then 3 fireballs burst forth, stunning Registile. That's a grass type, using fire type moves. And casting Sunny Day inside the forge. Hikaru grabbed some materials and started hammering away. The blazing forge stirred Registile's memories. It felt like a scene from the temple's golden age. Those distant blacksmiths of old overlapped in its mind with the human now working before it. The iron blank quickly took shape, passing through multiple forging stages until it became a functional tool. A small hammer. Hikaru remembered that ancient smiths often used 2 hammers, a large one for striking, and a small one for guiding or fine-tuning. The old small hammer left in the temple only had a 10% forging bonus. So Hikaru decided to forge a brand new one as a gift to build friendship with the Steel Titan. Crafted item, Bullet Forge Hammer. Description: a tool forged from Pokémon materials and scrap metal using special flame forging techniques. Enhances steel and fire type energy. Effect: quick forging, forge speed plus 25%, special technique, bullet punch. Hikaru raised the mini hammer, rubbed his chin, and handed it to Registile. The Titan held it and immediately felt a strange connection. It was as if the hammer fused with its being. A warm current spread inside fire-type energy. It didn't boost its power, but it increased its heat tolerance. And its steel power did rise. When it lightly swung the small hammer, a silver flash sliced through the air like a bullet. Bullet hammer? Beep beep beep. Registile's pitch rose. It wanted to learn this forging style. Great. Then from today onward, we're friends, right? Beep beep beep. Registile agreed, visibly excited. This small hammer would be a massive help in its future smithing. Meanwhile, Regirock had wandered over to Steven's side while he was too deep in ore analysis to notice. With a quiet tap, Regirock signaled Steven, then rummaged through the mineral pile and pulled out several pieces of black and silver ore resembling crushed iron. It held them tightly, handing one to Steven. At first Steven was puzzled, but after feeling the ore, his eyes widened. The steel energy within it was incredible. Beep beep beep. Registile noticed Regirock rummaging through the temple and grumbled in annoyance until it saw Hikaru holding a small hammer. Reluctantly, it let it slide. Hikaru picked up one of the stones. Rare material, black steel. Description: a special metal formed by fusing multiple ores in precise ratios under extreme pressure. Considered an unknown alloy. Effect: greatly enhances the steel energy of steel-type Pokémon. Extremely hard. Only Pokémon with the moves Heavy Slam or Crush Grip can forge it. Unlocked craft, Smelting Craft, B+. Description: fuse known materials to create new ones. Recipes exist, but even with a formula, smelting has a high failure rate. Use with caution. Smeltable items: Iron Ball, Black, Magma Stabilizer, Mysterious Stone. Gained knowledge: raw strength plus 100%. The legendary black steel acquired. Hikaru chatted with Registile, learning that it did no heavy slam. But he hadn't decided how to use the black steel yet, so he just stored it safely for now. Meanwhile, Blood Moon Ursuluna had been waiting patiently, nearly falling asleep. Sorry. I really want to set out soon, but I've still got one last thing to do. Hikaru asked Ursuluna to wait a bit more. He gathered some soil and ore from the temple, had Dowblade fly outside to sketch the temple's appearance, then used spiritual paper to draft a blueprint. With mud, iron, and stone, he crafted a miniature temple figure. Next, he carved runes into the temple's outer floor. Using Doublade's sacred sword, they etched spell-like patterns into the ground. Hikaru placed sacred stone and iron chunks at the center psychic-charged relics. As he pressed his hands to the ground, he felt the pulse of the earth's power. Dowblade, unknown use hidden power and awakening power on the temple and the model simultaneously. Chapter 149. Rumble. A bright green glow began to radiate from around the black steel temple. The earth vein energy was being visualized. The energy that once lingered vaguely around the temple now flowed in clear currents along the engraved ground patterns, as if those lines had drawn arrows for the energy to follow. With the help of secret power and hidden power, combined with the rune craft, the Black Steel Temple was transformed into a movable zone. Hikaru now understood the unique nature of the mysterious ground craft. It was like a type of area-based teleportation. Of course, even in the games, similar regions exist not only in the Mystery Dungeon series but also in the main world. For instance, in Unova, there was a location known as the Cave of Being, a mystical place that linked Unova and Sinnoh. Both the interior and structure of the cave bore striking resemblance to the sanctuaries of the Lake Trio in Sinnoh: Lake Verity, Lake Valor, and Lake Acuity. In fact, the Lake Trio themselves would sometimes appear in the Cave of Being, creating a connection between two distant regions as if the cave was a pocket dimension. Next, I just need to designate a new location. Then the earth veins will connect the two zones, adjusting their positions and creating a shortcut, or even directly linking this patch of land to a new area on the same plane. In that process, the orb crafting skill plays a major role by creating mysterious jade orbs to fine-tune the status of each zone. These orbs could also serve as powerful energy sources for the zones. In short, all of this is a grand craft meant to forge settlements. With the miniature model of the Black Steel Temple left behind, the group followed Blood Moon Ursuluna. Flying, of course, was much faster. Steven was practically in a frenzy at this point. Though they hadn't gone mining today, the haul they'd gotten was worth more than a week in the tunnels. Metagross, use Psychic. Steven gave the order, and his Metagross activated its telekinetic powers. He also released 2 Beldum, and he and Hikaru each mounted one. Hikaru returned the rest of his Pokémon to their Pokeballs. With Regirock staying at the Black Steel Temple to chat with Registile, Metagross didn't have to carry too much. All it had to do was support Ursuluna. Gagacha. As a ground type, Ursuluna had never flown before. The sensation was absolutely terrifying. Feet off the ground. The sheer tension left it flailing. Metagross had to use a great deal of effort to stabilize it. It let out an annoyed snarl. Metae. Stop squirming. You're gonna crash us. In the end, they had no choice but to let Ursuluna lie flat across Metagross' back while holding it down with Psychic to reduce its weight. Finally, it relaxed a bit, still floating, but at least resting on something. There's the valley, Steven called, eyes scanning the horizon. Mountains loomed ahead. The rear of the Shinto forest stretched into a vast mountain range, linking to the ancient Spirit Peak and eventually reaching an unnamed plateau to the west. Even from afar, they could spot a wide, barren land within the valley. Pale grey sandstone covered the ground, surrounded by withered ancient trees. No Pokémon. No life. Gotcha. Ursuluna scrambled down awkwardly from Metagross and stomped its feet. This was home. Valley of Light. Hikaru murmured. From the sky, the valley's shape looked oddly familiar, though in the world of Pokémon, such valleys weren't rare. The sky above was clear, with not a single cloud in sight. So barren, Steven observed. He picked up a rock and examined it. There was no trace of rock-type energy, and the texture was poor. Useless stone from poor soil. It was strange. The outer forest was lush with towering trees, yet here, deep in its heart, the land was dead and lifeless. This place should have been fertile. Hikaru activated his knowledge as a child of the earth, sensing the earth veins beneath. The flow of energy was extremely faint. It was as if the valley's underground was hollow, its life force dwindling. Neither humans, Pokémon, nor plants could thrive here. He paused in thought. No earth veins meant no life force, hence the soil degradation. He'd suspected it was just a soil problem, but now realized the issue was systemic. Without intervention, the land would be abandoned completely. Likely, the decay had started long ago. Only now had the life force dwindled so much that not even the plants could endure it. Fortunately, the veins hadn't vanished entirely. By rerouting the earth veins and improving the soil, we can bring this place back to life. Even if the soil was degraded, it couldn't be worse than the ruined soil in the reverse world's floating isles. That place didn't even have earth veins, and yet they'd revived it. Hikaru already had a plan, and better yet, the mysterious ground craft he'd just obtained could help him guide the veins. With that, the land could recover quickly. And he even had the symbolic plate with him. Perhaps he could borrow the power of the legendary Pokémon tied to the earth. Ursuluna, meanwhile, was searching for its old den. Not far away was a massive cave filled with dead leaves and broken branches, collected from the ancient dead trees. It entered the cave and soon came out, huffing and puffing, carrying a massive stone. Hikaru's eyes were drawn to the cave. Many eyes were watching them from within. Those must be the local Pokémon. Ursuluna had mentioned before that it was once called a mountain god by the weaker Pokémon here. So that cave must be a shelter for them? Gotcha. Ursuluna placed the massive stone down and told Hikaru this was the special rock it had mentioned. Hey, I've never seen anything like this, Steven muttered, his eyes locked on the stone. He'd come all this way just to see it. Though now, it seemed more like a sculpture than an actual mineral. It didn't look like any natural ore. Slightly disappointed, Steven furrowed his brow. But Hikaru's expression turned solemn. The shape. Steven wouldn't know it, he was from Hone, after all. But before Sinnoh champion Cynthia had studied the ancient ruins of Hisui, no one knew of Arceus. Naturally, they wouldn't recognize this stone. So that's what this is. What is it now? Steven looked exasperated. You know again? You're making me look bad as a gem collector. Hikaru could only respond with a sheepish but polite smile. Its appearance matched Ursuluna's description, but more precisely, it resembled the Thousand Arms cross of Arceus, that golden, wheel-like cross-shaped structure on its body. In Kalos, there was a place called the Valley of Creation, where people once crafted similar ornaments as charms, believed to grant divine protection. In the ancient Hisui era, there existed a stone naturally shaped like this, capable of crafting the 3 sacred charms. Craft item, Guardian Stone. Description, a mysterious stone shaped exactly like Arceus' Thousand Arms. Origin unknown, it's believed to have a deep connection with Arceus. It grants divine protection to humans and Pokémon. This stone is indestructible. Effect 1, wishing upon the Guardian Stone with gratitude can imbue charms with unique effects. Effect 2, enhances the potential limit of humans and Pokémon, causing mysterious transformations. Effect 3, power of creation, locked, grants the rightful bearer the power of creation. Not yet time. If mastered, can craft items related to Arceus, requires plates. Chapter 150. Even though this thing doesn't have a glamorous appearance, it's far more precious than those pretty gemstones. At the same time, Hikaru also figured out why such a special individual like Blood Moon Ursuluna had appeared in this forest, and shiny one, no less. With a connection to Arceus, it made perfect sense. The so-called enhancement of potential and strange transformations probably referred to exactly this kind of phenomenon. The Blood Moon Ursuluna from Kitakami had undergone centuries of harsh survival, and evolved into such a form due to its heightened potential being pushed to the extreme for the sake of living. Though, in the game, the timeless woods in Kitakami didn't seem all that harsh. With the Guardian Stone, I can now craft the ancient charm and the 3 sacred charms. Yup, just like in the games. The power of creation, that must be related to Arceus. Arceus had a number of connected abilities. This particular power might come from the people of the Valley of Creation. In the Hoopa and the Clash of Ages movie, those people displayed a golden energy of wonder. In a flashback, Gris, the leader of the valley who sealed away most of Hoopa's power, used that energy to instantly grow a plant from seed to full maturity. The same energy could act as telekinesis, preventing Pokémon from moving, and, when combined with specific plates, could be used to forge unique items like the prison bottle. If this energy could be used to make orbs, then perhaps the life orb made from 5 elemental forces, the life jewel, could also be recreated. Note, that jewel isn't the same as the normal life orb item. This one is green and can turn extremely barren land into fertile soil. Hikaru gripped the pointed ends of the Guardian Stone with both hands, sensing its power through his mastery of rock-type knowledge. A hidden power was activated. The Guardian Stone responded to Hikaru, establishing a connection. But just as its description had said, it's not yet time for the power of creation to awaken. The stone hadn't fully awakened yet. The power it held required a medium to activate. Still, the second effect had clearly worked. Hikaru felt a change in his body. He then invited Steven to touch the stone as well. What a strange sensation! Hey! Just like Hikaru, Steven with his deep knowledge of geology resonated with the Guardian Stone instantly. It amplified something within him. He blinked, tightened his fists, touched his chest, then finally placed his hand over his heart. Hikaru asked, "Hey? What's wrong?" "I feel really relaxed." "Like, incredibly so." Steven looked astonished. "Is this the stone's power? After the incident in Hone 2 years ago, I've sometimes felt incredibly fatigued. The doctors never found a cause. But just now, All that built-up fatigue vanished. I feel amazing. And Stephen moved his hand from his chest to cover his eyes. Unlike normal people, the highlights in his eyes were slightly dimmer. And after that event, my vision got worse, but now, I can see everything clearly again. Hearing Stephen's story, Hikaru recalled one of Stephen's earlier character concepts. In some early lore, Stephen was actually designed to have an eye condition, which is why his pupils always looked a bit empty in the anime and manga. That idea was eventually scrapped, but judging from what Stephen just said, and his vague recollection of the Regis, maybe this fatigue and vision issue were echoes from a parallel world version of Stephen? Could it be that when Celebi was adjusting the future, it projected the fatigue from an alternate universe Stephen into this world? Well, that's great news. In any case, this stone is connected to a Pokémon named Arceus. Whether or not it created the stone, I can't say for sure. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to help reverse soil degradation, but it definitely provides blessings to both humans and Pokémon. Stephen smiled. The deeper I explore this land, the more new stones I discover. Even if they're not sparkly gemstones, each has a history, a story. Every rock has a reason for being. This one, with its strange shape and mysterious power, it must have a beautiful tale behind it too. This must be more valuable to you than me, I can tell. It's a shame I can't add it to my collection. But thanks to the stone, and to you. His mood lifted, Stephen gave a few firm pats to Blood Moon Ursuluna, who scratched its head in reply. No thanks needed. What mattered most was restoring the land's vitality. Of course. Let's get started on reviving this land right away. Hikaru pulled several tools from his backpack, one of which was a small mirror. Under the curious eyes of Stephen and Ursuluna, Hikaru reached toward the mirror. And his hand passed through it. Stephen froze in shock, Ursuluna's eyes widened. Did your hand just go into the mirror? The Pokémon world was full of weird stuff, but this was definitely a first for Stephen. So this was the power of a true Shinto region craftsman? The mirror itself isn't special, it's what's behind it. That world's home to a friend of ours. Not long ago, I asked them to help stockpile materials for soil restoration. Now's the time to put it to use. Hikaru mentally called out to Giratina, explaining the situation. Thanks to that, he could access the distortion world through the mirror like a portable storage space. And since this mirror was from the real world, even though Giratina's powers were restricted and couldn't reach places like Hone, as long as Hikaru carried the mirror with him, Giratina could see and channel its power wherever Hikaru went. These are volcanic ash-based powders I formulated from MT Stark's ash. They drastically enhance soil fertility, improve structure, and accelerate plant growth. I also have a unique technique that allows new soil to assimilate the old soil, quickly revitalizing it. Think of it like a special psychic ability. Next, we give this to Turtwig. Hikaru released Turtwig and sprinkled the volcanic powder onto its back. Even though Turtwig didn't yet have the ground typing, it could still feel the Earth's energy surging within its control over the land already far surpassed most ground types. Hikaru also handed a bag of the powder to Ursuluna. But to his surprise, Ursuluna tried to eat it. Hey! That's not food, wait, you actually ate it. Despite being a ground type, that wasn't supposed to be its diet. But Ursuluna looked really satisfied with the taste. Pokémon diets are truly bizarre, do they literally eat their element to grow? Turtwig, use Mud Slap. Gotcha. Ursuluna blinked, confused by the tiny turtle's actions. Turtwig can absorb and mix soil ingredients, then shoot it out as nutrient-rich mud via Mud Slap. If we want fertile land, we'll need to rely on that. Turtwig. It nodded proudly. Next, we pour this new soil into a pit. Hikaru had barely spoken when Ursuluna already dug a massive hole with dig. Use Mud Slap. Turtwig unleashed a blast of rich, fortified mud, filling the pit with revitalized soil. Then, with Hikaru's special knowledge, a wave of light brown energy radiated outward across the land. This is just step 1. We need to repeat this all across the valley. Once enough new soil takes root, the land's power will return. But for the next part, Stephen, may I borrow Metagross? Metagross was ecstatic even more than Stephen himself. Which earned a strange glance from Stephen. Why does it look like you're its trainer? Metagross tried not to look smug, giving a sheepish smile, that honestly looked more like a creepy grin due to its massive jaw, leaving Stephen helplessly shaking his head. Metagross muttered to itself. Work makes me stronger. This is a golden opportunity. I can fly, I've got psychic powers, this is my time to shine. But Hikaru didn't borrow Metagross just for travel, he needed its psychic powers to help redirect the earth veins, reactivating the energy in this nearly dead land. Of course, doing so wasn't easy, tampering with earth vein flow was dangerous. That's why Metagross' mental power was so crucial. Also assisting, Doublade and Unown. Hikaru planned to turn this whole region into a domain. Strange markings were etched across the valley. To speed things up, Steven and his two Beldum pitched in as well. Once the giant array was completed, the entire barren valley was encompassed. Steven remarked, "This valley is enormous. From above, it actually looks like a crescent moon. Oh, and I found a meteorite fragment. Maybe this valley's desolation is linked to a meteor strike." Steven continued, "I've heard in Unova, fragments of an ancient meteor were found. They said a massive meteor broke apart in the atmosphere, scattering across the world. The largest piece landed in Unova. These fragments can alter climate and disturb Pokémon behavior." Hikaru thought to himself that was certainly possible. The earth vein degradation likely began long ago. Maybe something fell here and disrupted the soil, or shifted the flow of the veins entirely. Meanwhile, Turtwig was still spreading the new soil. Ursuluna sprinkled more volcanic powder onto its back as it worked. After filling dozens of pits, Turtwig began to tire. It had done so much. Turtwig was exhausted. Its gaze drifted and suddenly locked onto the Guardian Stone. That stone radiated a power that calmed Pokémon. What was that thing? Curious, Turtwig wanted to touch it, but its cautious nature made it hesitate. It circled the stone several times. Then Ursuluna explained its origins, saying that both Hikaru and Steven had touched it and experienced amazing effects. That was all the encouragement Turtwig needed. It gently touched the stone. And its body began to glow white, the light of evolution. Turtwig. Hikaru returned just in time to witness it. Within the shining light, Turtwig's body grew larger, its shell expanded and rose up. Ha-ya! The glow faded. Standing before Hikaru was a yellow-shelled, turtle-like Pokémon. The shell was still earth and hardened soil, and atop it grew two bushes. But wait! What's with the colors? Hikaru blinked in shock. Turtwig had evolved into Grotle. However, the bushes on its back, which should have been green, were now a mix of red and green. After coming into contact with the Guardian Stone, its connection with strong scented herbs had merged with Turtwig, forming mighty shrubs. Chapter 151. Ha-ya! The Grotle, the bush Pokémon, had its shell turned yellow and segmented into several parts. Its body beneath the shell was still green, but its lower jaw and feet had also become yellow, giving it a slightly dopey appearance. Clearly, Grotle hadn't expected to evolve so soon. Meanwhile, a stream of information popped up for Hikaru. Grotle has completed a task and gained experience and growth. The same message repeated several times. Repetition in labor often led to new knowledge. Gained insight. Ecological nurturing. Grotle can completely absorb various beneficial elements from the soil. With the knowledge of soil chemistry, it can enhance soil fertility and nutrients. Soil fertility plus 100%. Learned move, grassy terrain. Gained insight, multiple sprouts. Because of its pre-evolution's ability to regulate soil and promote plant growth, under the blessing of the Guardian Stone, the vegetation on Grotle's back will continuously mutate, producing rare new plants. Mutation rate of plants plus 50%. Learned move, seed bomb. Congratulations, Grotle, you've obtained new power. Hikaru stroked Grotle's newly formed shell. Unlike the earthy texture from when it was still a Turtwig, it was now much harder. Hikaru wondered whether he could still change soil for Grotle like before. Since this shell was still formed of soil, did changing soil equate to changing armor? Perhaps if he used different kinds of soil on various parts of its shell, he could develop an all-terrain planting strategy. Then there were the red and green bushes, plants Hikaru had never seen before. After plucking one of the red leaves, a new entry appeared in his mind. Mutated material, power bush leaf. Description: a plant mutated from power herb, retaining the same effect. This bush bears unique fruit that is favored by many Pokémon. Due to the mutation, eating it grants a brief power boost of 10% and helps increase effort values. Originally, Grotle would naturally grow special fruits on its back that looked like acorns. While soft and favored by Pokémon, they weren't particularly palatable to humans. Ha-ya! Grotle moved a bit and realized its body had become noticeably heavier. But thanks to its extensive training and many consumed poke blocks and elixirs, it had greatly developed its stats, condition, and physical strength. It didn't suffer a loss of confidence like Ash's Grotle did after evolution. After adjusting to its new body, Grotle began running swiftly. Its heavy steps thudded against the ground as it activated the move Grassy Terrain. It moved faster and faster. Ha yeah! Feeling pretty good. That's what Grotle meant as the red and green shrubs on its back swayed, soaking up sunlight and giving it a massive stamina boost. It evolved, but it's different from normal Grotle. Aside from my personal cultivation, the Guardian Stone's blessing also played a role. That mysterious stone again, it's amazing, said Stephen, astonished as he looked at the unusually colored Grotle. Just then, both of them watched as Grotle unleashed a special move toward a patch of newly tilled soil. A radiant green light, sparkling like stardust, gathered around Grotle and suddenly burst outward from its body. The powerful light spread in all directions, green energy rising from the land, blanketing hill after hill. Soon, almost half the valley was covered in this shimmering green brilliance. Next, Grotle opened its mouth and began firing seeds into the newly treated soil. Is that grassy terrain? That range is huge. Stephen murmured, stunned. This was the largest grassy terrain Stephen had ever seen. Within this field, all grounded Pokémon would continuously restore HP, grass-type moves would get a power boost, and ground-based moves like Earthquake, Magnitude, and Stomping Tantrum would have their damage reduced. This is completely different from the usual grassy terrain. At this scale, it's practically a domain. Stephen hadn't battled Hikaru before, so he wasn't familiar with Turtwig's strength. Though he already knew Hikaru's Pokémon were strong, he hadn't expected this Turtwig, once the weakest-looking partner, had become a powerhouse after evolving. Using grassy terrain to restore the land, and firing seeds from Seed Bomb to plant crops. Stephen looked puzzled. Who knew Seed Bomb could be used that way? Many Pokémon could learn Seed Bomb, and often the seeds they fired weren't even physical, they were energy-based projectiles. But the seeds Grotle shot just now seemed like actual, viable plant seeds. Hikaru walked over and picked one up for a closer look. Mutated material, mixed seed. Description: mixed seeds are plantable in spring, summer, and autumn. The resulting crops will vary by season and environment. Hikaru froze. These seeds were familiar. Ha yeah, Grotle explained. The seeds were created within its own body, though it wasn't entirely sure what kinds of plants would grow. But it believed they would help restore the valley's ecosystem. In that case, come out, Lilligant. Hikaru summoned Lilligant. Use growth. Dori Lilligant first noticed the transformed Turtwig and curiously circled around Grotle. Once she confirmed it was her old partner, she was amazed and then gracefully approached the new soil, activating growth. Vitality surged through the earth, and under the influence of grassy terrain, the power of Lilligant's move was further enhanced. Soon, countless sprouts began to grow. Gachomp! Blood Moon Ursuluna was the most excited. It stomped the earth, lowering itself to gently inspect the newborn sprouts, amazed that this once desolate valley was now filled with life. And we're not done yet. Hikaru took out the earth plate and the symbol plate. The earth plate's usage was simple, just place it on the ground and trigger it with a ground-type move to activate its power. As for the symbol plate, Hikaru altered the original letters for Calyrex's name. After all, Calyrex's current power was limited, and expecting it to restore a barren valley from afar wasn't realistic. Instead, he chose another legendary Pokémon tied to the soil. Landorus, the Abundance Pokémon. As he completed the spelling of its name, the entire valley's soil seemed to come alive. A latent vitality stirred beneath the earth, and the sky above began to stir with wind. After storms and lightning, the land shall flourish, absorbing their energy, the soil grows rich, and abundance follows. Such was Landorus's power. Now, the shifting skies mirrored that legend. Oh? You need storm, wind, and lightning energy? That's no problem. While Hikaru was still considering bringing back Hisuian Electrode or Regirock or even asking Giratina for help, Stephen smiled and offered to assist with this step himself. Come out, Agrin. Skarmory. A massive armored beast landed with a roar. Its entire body was encased in heavy steel armor, its head, neck, and spine covered with silver plating, and 3 sharp horns sprouted from its head. With piercing blue eyes and reinforced limbs, it had a massive black tail. Skarmory, in contrast, had silvery armor-plated feathers and red underwings. Though it looked heavy, its armor was surprisingly light, and its feathers made for top-tier metal weapons. Stephen pointed skyward. Use rain dance. Then, strike the soil with thunderbolt. He then turned to Skarmory. Use hurricane on the land. Agrin roared, the weather shifting instantly. Dark clouds gathered, and soon rain poured down. Then electricity surged from the spikes on Agrin's head and launched skyward. Thunder boomed, and a massive yellow bolt crashed down from the clouds. The symbol plate that bore Landorus's name suddenly lit up. An immense wave of ground-type energy swept across the valley, drawing in the wind and lightning energy. Interesting. Let me help as well. A voice echoed from deep within Hikaru's soul. Giratina had been watching through the mirror, intrigued by the scene, and now volunteered to help. But instead of entering from his realm, raise the mirror. Hikaru curiously held the mirror aloft. The surface rippled, and then, boom! A massive golden lightning bolt burst from the mirror. Giratina had cast Thunderbolt. But this wasn't ordinary lightning, it was charged with overwhelming energy. This was the Thunder of Rage, once used by Giratina during the ancient Hisui era to drive the hero Pokémon's descendants into a frenzy. Now, it was being repurposed to breathe life into the land. The mirror shot out lightning. Stephen was stunned. That's the power of my friend. Hikaru quickly explained. That move came from another world. What tremendous power! Stephen thought to himself. This isn't a move ordinary Pokémon can use. So, could that friend be a legendary Pokémon? If that were the case it all makes sense. After all, Hikaru is a mysterious craftsman who even forged bonds with the legendary titans. The valley transformed before their eyes. The once barren surface crumbled into dust, replaced by fertile soil from the distance that began to merge and spread. The transformation was so fast it was practically a miracle. The scattered seeds germinated rapidly, growing into a variety of plants and crops. Hikaru performed the final step, summoning Tao Blade and Unown to unleash secret power and hidden power on the valley's miniature model. And just like that, this once dead valley came fully back to life. Blood Moon Ursuluna's quest was completed. Hikaru received a precious guardian stone. Stephen was ready to let Metagross take everyone back. But Hikaru stopped him. This land had changed. The ley lines here now connected to the Iron Temple. Look there. Isn't that the Iron Temple? It's connected now. Hikaru pointed to the valley entrance. Just beyond, the silhouette of a temple appeared. A fantastical paradise could now be created starting right here. At that moment, a faint golden light shimmered across the Guardian Stone. Far away at the Iron Temple, Regirok and Registile were still conversing when the steel giant turned and noticed a new valley entrance. Hey? Was it seeing things? This place should have been all forest and moss. How did a valley entrance appear? Haha, must have been chatting too long, it was hallucinating. In the distortion world, Giratina was gleeful. It had done a good deed and was proud. The Thunder of Rage had reappeared after centuries, but this time, to restore nature. Watching Hikaru's manipulation of the land made Giratina even more amazed. Wait, his abilities are starting to resemble Regigigas. Linking different lands and even worlds, how impressive for its contract partner. Only the descendants of the Divine Gate could pull off something like this. Cheerfully, Giratina flew toward the apple grove. Now that the barren land was revitalized, it planned to replicate the process in the distortion world. Just needed the legendary titans to dig up the weather stones and send Hikaru over a few more times. Soon the whole place would be lush and green. Giratina eyed the apple trees. Thanks to all kinds of buffs, the apple trees had already started bearing fruit, though they still looked a little green. Their speed of growth was odd, but Giratina was excited. It decided to take a bite. Even if it was sour, that was fine. Delicious is delicious. But just as it was about to bite, the apple fell, and rolled away. The apple sprouted eyes that blinked at Giratina and let out a weird shriek. Then, dozens of apples in the trees sprouted similar eyes. Giratina blinked. Wait, these apples have pests. Chapter 152. Gaia. Hey! You tree planting mantis! We've got a pest problem over here. Come handle it. Giratina was stunned as it watched the apples run away, its expression turning serious. It had once observed how human farmers dealt with pests while peering into the real world. If this wasn't stopped immediately, all the apples it had painstakingly grown would be devoured by these bugs. In the distance, Scizor was diligently planting trees. Hearing Giratina's call, it tilted its head in confusion and pointed at itself. Has? Ha! You want me to deal with the pests? But I am a bug. It had never heard of a bug type being asked to deal with other bugs. But Scizor flapped its wings and clanked forward with heavy steps toward the rolling apples, fixing its gaze on one in particular and striking with metal claw. It caught one of the fleeing apples still green. Cry-eek! The apple let out a panicked squeal. Scizor was startled as two large eyes popped out of the apple and locked onto its own, and then the apple screamed. A faint ghostly aura suddenly burst forth, making Scizor jump. Gah! Was that? Astonish! Watching the caught green apple use that move, Giratina was equally surprised. Could these bugs have been born under the influence of the distortion world's power? That was definitely a ghost-type move just now. Hass! Scizor, now annoyed, grabbed the creature's tail protruding from the apple and started pulling. Cry-eek! Cry-eek! The bug hiding inside the apple panicked, its big eyes showing pain and desperation. It pleaded with Scizor not to yank it out. Its cries attracted the attention of the other rolling apples, who all hopped over and started bombarding Scizor with astonish, making it glance around in all directions. Hey! These little things were ganging up on it. Scizor raised both of its clawed pincers and held them beside its head. Suddenly, a terrifying aura emanated from it. The apples, trying to scare Scizor, were now being intimidated themselves. They scattered in all directions, some even fainting on the spot. Scizor had lifted its pincers, which had patterns resembling eyeballs, making it look like it had 3 heads. It was a well-known intimidation technique. Pokémon with weak hearts were especially vulnerable to it, some might even faint just from fear. The green apple's eyes went dull, and tears welled up in them. No, don't hurt my apple. Scizor looked down at the tearful green apple and suddenly lost all desire to fight. It felt like it was bullying something tiny and weak. Honestly, it wouldn't even bat an eye at creatures like this in the wild. Gaia! Giratina, after observing these bugs for a while, finally noticed something different. They didn't seem like pests. More like Pokémon? But they still ate its apples. Giratina didn't recognize these odd creatures, so it decided to consult Hikaru. It called out through their soul connection. What do you do if your apple trees have pests? These things look like Pokémon, but I've never seen them. What should I do with them? The soul call quickly received a response. Pokémon that live inside apples? Could they be Applin? Applin? So they are pests? Should I remove them from the apples? No, no. Applin is a kind of Pokémon that's born inside apples. It spends its whole life in the apple, eating the fruit flesh as it grows. In fact, it secretes fluids that strengthen the apple's skin and prevent rot. If it loses its apple, it'll start to dry out and weaken, maybe even die. Although ordinary pests can be dealt with using bug spray, Applin actually helps apple trees grow. It has an ability called ripening, which can make berries ripen quickly and even double their effects. That good? Upon hearing that, Giratina's opinion on the apple chomping bugs shifted immediately. Oh, but it also has an ability called gluttony. That one causes it to eat berries early, which can be a bit annoying. But I can fix that by feeding them more poke blocks. Plus, they can learn a move called recycle, letting them regrow consumed berries. Though it's rare for Applin to know that move, I've got a way to teach them all, just need Celebi's statue. Giratina was thrilled. It looked over the pile of collapsed Applin on the ground and started considering letting them stay and help grow trees. Gaia! No need to deal with them anymore. Turns out they're special Pokémon. Scizor, release it. Hass! Scizor reluctantly opened its pincers, dropping the green Applin with a thud. The other Applin immediately rushed over, sheltering the green one among the apple pile. But every single one of them trembled as they glanced at Scizor and Giratina. What terrifying monsters! Gaia! I am Giratina, the ruler of this world. This is the distortion world, also known as the reverse world. Why are you living in the apples I planted? Those apples belong to me. You ate them without my permission and caused me great trouble. Giratina's words instantly triggered panic in the Applin, who trembled and responded. Cry-eek, cry-eek. We don't know. We just woke up already inside the apples. Please don't eat us. Hey? Pokémon that naturally spawned? Giratina was utterly confused. How could that happen? The reverse world wasn't like the real world with Arceus watching over it. Hass! Scizor chimed in then, saying the feeling it had when pulling their tails wasn't quite right. They didn't seem like bug types. Now Giratina was even more confused. Not bug types? Then grass types? Applin is a grass and dragon type Pokémon, Hikaru's soul voice echoed again. At last, Giratina understood where they had come from. Most grass types had plant-like traits. Which meant, these little things may have existed as some kind of form on the apple trees themselves. Then, after being stimulated by Hikaru's Pokémon, they were born when the apples formed and immediately dove inside. The strange texture when Scizor touched them was because they were dragons. What kind of dragon looks like that? Gah! In midair, Giratina twisted its body in disbelief and then addressed the applin. Since you've entered the distortion world, why not stay here? I'm cultivating high-quality apples, and it seems you have the power to make them ripen faster. I want to borrow that ability. Work for me. In exchange, I'll share the delicious apples we grow. Let's turn this place into an apple orchard. The applin looked at each other and started chirping in discussion. Green apple, Craiek, this giant monster seems like a demon king, it looks vicious. Red apple A, Craiek, are we being kidnapped? I don't want to be eaten. Red apple B, Craiek. We're gonna be forced to work for this demon king. If we don't want to get eaten, we'd better offer him apples as tribute. Red apple C, Craiek. But the apples here taste really good. If we get to eat them every day, I guess working's not so bad. That last remark got unanimous agreement from the group. Sure, the monster looked scary and so did that humanoid with 3 heads, but these apples were delicious. Even when unripe, they were bursting with flavor. Fully ripe? They'd be heavenly. For the sake of those apples, we accept. Besides, we've got nowhere else to go. Chapter 153. The distortion world had gained its very first group of residents. Giratina was positively thrilled, excitedly sharing everything with Hikaru through their soul link. It was overjoyed Pokémon that had only existed in the real world now also lived in the reverse world. Though the little applin living in the apples didn't look fierce, if anything, they were far too cute. They were still dragon-type Pokémon. Watching these innocent little applin, Giratina felt for the first time like a proud parent or an older sibling. As for Scizor, that was just a regular work bug. Seems like something good happened to you. Steven asked. Hikaru smiled. Something fun just happened in another world. Has to do with that friend of mine. All it took was a batch of tasty apples for the applin to willingly stay. Though they probably didn't realize it, Giratina, despite its terrifying appearance, was actually quite reasonable. If they ever wanted to leave the reverse world, all they had to do was ask. But, they were greedy little gluttons, and the apples were just too good to leave. Back in the Valley of Light, the legendary giants couldn't contain their curiosity any longer and started walking toward the valley. Before long, they entered and saw Hikaru and the others. The markings on the rock and steel titans' faces flashed wildly. Though they didn't quite understand what was going on, they were clearly amazed. Even the legendary titans are shocked. Steven murmured, shaking his head. He felt the same way. But considering this involved psychic power, maybe it wasn't too impossible? A psychic who can move entire chunks of land, connect 2 important sites via psychic force. I might have to ask a few acquaintances about this later. When it came to psychics in Hone, the names Tate and Liza from Moss Deep City came to mind. It was also Steven's hometown. Still, Steven knew the siblings specialized more in telepathy. With the right pathway, we can now quickly reach where we need to go. Our next stop is the Rock Peak Temple. As for the Valley of Light, Hikaru glanced toward the distant cave. Thanks to the restored land, ground-type Pokémon were the first to sense the change. A few Sandshrew emerged, sniffing around as they dug at the earth. They were followed by a group of Sunflora, Tangela, Paras, Rattata, even a few Pico and Chikorita and a whole bunch of Dopey Seduc. Gotchi. Blood Moon Ursuluna explained, these were Pokémon that originally lived in the valley. Years ago, before the land became barren, many more had called this place home. But due to environmental changes, most had been forced to leave and find new habitats. Strong Pokémon could survive in the wild, but weaker ones had to stick together, rely on each other, or follow stronger Pokémon to survive. These ones had remained, sometimes even helping Wake try to restore the land. Sunflora could convert solar energy into nutrients, Tangela could grow vines endlessly, and the Sandshrew could till the soil. They were all helpful. But until now, with the land nearly dead, no amount of help had made a difference. Now, Thanks to everyone's aid, the valley was coming back to life. Looks like it'll be fully restored soon. Hikaru watched as the Pokémon first celebrated, then quickly got to work. Sandshrew tilled the land, Sunflora bathed in the sun, Tangela spread greenery, Rattata cleaned up dead branches, while Piku and Chikorita helped out as well. As for the Psyduck, Quah! They tilted their heads in confusion, clearly unsure what to do. One nearby Chikorita extended its vine and gave each Psyduck a good smack. Instantly suffering a headache, the Psyduck sprang into action and began spraying water gun all over the open fields. Regirock lit up with an H-shaped gleam on its face. It began talking to Ursuluna, offering to trade anything needed through the Rock Peak Temple or the workshop. In return, Ursuluna handed over a pile of struggle rocks he had gathered to Regirock, Hikaru, and Steven. Hikaru accepted the stones and thought for a moment before asking Ursuluna. If you dig up any special gemstones, bring them to the workshop or the Rock Peak Temple. Orange stones, black stones, blue-green stones, or any precious, glossy bones. Gotchi. Ursuluna agreed eagerly, thumping his chest, but Regirock raised an arm indignantly. Hey! Isn't mining my job? Well, Ursuluna can dig for treasure too, Hikaru replied with a grin. Back in the Hisui era, Ursuluna were expert diggers. Their sensitive noses and unique underground sense made it easy to find buried treasure. In this aspect, Regirock, being a rock type, just couldn't compare to ground types. With plenty of rewards gathered and the forest disturbance resolved, Hikaru marked several locations on the way back: Celebi Shrine, Rock Peak Temple, the Ruinwood Grove, Shinto Graveyard, and the Ancient Garden. Soon, all these sites would be connected together, allowing easier interaction between Pokémon and simplifying Hikaru's work. All the marked locations would be united. That evening, Steven received a phone call from his father, Mr. Stone, the president of Devon Corporation. Hikaru wasn't privy to the conversation. There's a lot going on at Devon, Steven said afterward. I've dragged you around on so many errands. I'll be finishing those items you requested very soon. Though Steven insisted that the current happenings in Shinto were the top priority, as the heir of Devon, he clearly had many responsibilities. Maybe, based on the timeline, this had something to do with things like the giant meteor, infinity energy, or the legendary stone. But that wasn't something Hikaru had to worry about. Since this world had protagonists like in the games, he trusted their plot armor to handle it. No, really, I should be thanking you. Thanks to our adventures, I've gained so many rare and fascinating stones. Steven looked genuinely satisfied. This journey had been incredibly rewarding. Not only did he get rare stones, but he also learned their names and uses from Hikaru. Sure, one of the reasons I travel is to hunt rare stones, but more importantly, I want to walk through the world with my own 2 feet, witness its wonders, and truly learn everything it has to offer. I'm only able to travel freely as a champion thanks to so many who've helped me. I always remind myself never to forget those who support me. Hikaru smiled. If I've helped you, then I'm really glad. The two chatted for a long time. Steven decided he would return to Hone in 3 days. He seemed a bit reluctant, muttering something like, maybe if I stay longer, I'll find more gems. So for the next 3 days, Steven planned to go mining with Regirock before it was too late. Meanwhile, Hikaru spent the time forging new tools. The Guardian Stone had been brought back, and as soon as he got the right materials, he could start crafting charms. Results were expected within the next few days. Looking at it now, Regirock's trade station was pretty convenient. Hikaru also made a small request to Steven. If Uragran or Skarmory shed any armor or feathers, could you send them my way? Materials from champion-level Pokémon were far superior to those from wild ones. Steven readily agreed. It wasn't a big deal. Uragran aside, Skarmory shed a batch of steel feathers every year. These made excellent materials or food for other steel types. But compared to the imported steel gems Steven bought from Unova, these feathers weren't particularly valuable to him. Steven understood why Hikaru wanted them. Clearly, he was going to use them to craft special tools. As a partner and collaborator, Steven was happy to fully support Hikaru's endeavors. He even offered funding, saying that if Hikaru needed capital, Devon could approve a large research grant. Expensive items could also be reimbursed by the company. Even material procurement could be billed under Devon. Of course, Steven hadn't forgotten the matter of the gold and silver leaves either. He assured Hikaru it was taken care of. Hikaru lit up. As expected of Steven. It's great to have a rich friend. To repay Steven for his support, the first thing Hikaru planned to finish was the choice series of items followed by products themed around dragons and ghosts. Also, once the Calyrex Plus highs were ready, it would be time to ship them out. The psychics would retrieve their orders via teleportation. After staying up through the night to finish the Plus highs, Hikaru posted a message in the merchant chat group. Calyrex Plus highs are ready. Come pick them up. The moment the message was sent, Hikaru felt a surge of psychic energy in the workshop. The numerous Plus highs on the table began disappearing one after another. In the end, only one batch remained untouched. Gardevoirs. Unova's too far. My psychic powers can't reach that far. Gardevoir sulked in the chat, attaching an angry puffed up emoji. Johto region, Crystal Cliff. A greyish Pokémon, humanoid yet feline, gently cradled a newly received Calyrex plush. At the very moment it touched the plush, something stirred in its heart. The locked away gloom inside it seemed to lighten, as if an ancient relic had finally opened its window and let in a single beam of sunlight. All its doubts about the plush vanished in that instant. The Pokémon known as Mewtwo closed its eyes. From the moment of its birth, it had endured many, many things. But never before had it felt this kind of peace. It wished it could stay in this feeling forever. Thank you, Calyrex. Mewtwo murmured the name of the king of bountiful harvests. A surge of powerful faith radiated from its body, drifting into dreams, into the plush, and all the way across space toward distant Galar. Chapter 154. Crystal Cliff. This place overflowed with Mewtwo's memories. A year and a half ago, Team Rocket somehow discovered this sanctuary. They made a desperate attempt to seize control of Mewtwo's power again, dispatching a large force. However, thanks to several boys and girls and a strange trio, their plan once more failed. Mewtwo erased all their memories of that incident. Afterward, it sent the cloned Pokémon that had lived here with it to various corners of the world. Though they were copies, they had true lives. So, they set off on journeys to live freely. Later, Mewtwo also began its own journey searching for the answer to what it meant to be alive. It had visited Cerulean Cave, left footprints in bustling cities, wandered to distant lands, witnessed myth and legend, fought powerful humans, and even seen bizarre space-time rifts, and now, after all that, it had returned to Crystal Cliff. The underground cavern was still vast, the mirror lake shimmered as ever, moss clung to the stone walls, but the other Pokémon were gone. So this was what loneliness felt like. As Mewtwo reflected on those events, it felt confused and just a little regretful. Because back then, it hadn't seen Giovanni. If Giovanni had been among the attackers, Mewtwo could have wiped his memory too, so that man would never recall Mewtwo's existence again. During its travels, Mewtwo eventually learned the truth. Giovanni and the Team Rocket executives had all been defeated by a group of young trainers. And though Team Rocket's operations had simply moved into the shadows, Giovanni himself was no longer at HQ. That man had gone back on the road in search of true strength. He even left a message to Team Rocket. Let me be clear. No matter how strong someone is, they can still fall. If you can't admit defeat, you'll never move forward. To build a stronger organization, I now begin a journey alone. Someday, I will revive Team Rocket. Hearing this, Mewtwo felt strange. The man who once saw Pokémon as nothing more than tools of power, who showed no love at all, was he really trying to start over? When that boy defeated him, did it shatter his pride as well? Mewtwo took out a human device, a Pokémon gadget it had learned to use while traveling through the cities. With its illusions, it forged an identity and gained access to this technology. Now that human society was rapidly developing, the internet was incredibly convenient once you knew how to use it. Thank you for the item. The Calyrex plush is incredibly effective. Just holding it seemed to wash away all its worries, immersing it in peace. Its emotional wounds were healing, and memories Mewtwo didn't even know it had began to surface. Was the world always this vibrant? Despite all it had seen, despite the journey, the return to home, something dark still lingered deep inside. But now, those shadows were melting away like winter snow and spring sun, flowing into streams and giving life to the valley. Flowers, trees, sky, breeze, clouds, sunlight, rainbows, ocean, forests, gravel, earth. To live, to feel, to think, to understand, and finally, in the stillness, to awaken. Mewtwo mentioned Hikaru in the merchant group and left a review beneath the workshop's store page. In human society, it had learned that many shops encouraged good reviews. More praise meant more customers, a cycle that helped business. And, to support someone, one could buy their products. Besides, Mewtwo could already see the future. Every item the workshop sold was authentic and powerful. Unfortunately, there weren't many psychic-type tools available yet. Not that Mewtwo needed any power boosts. Its power, even if not the greatest in the world, was among the highest. Power isn't everything. That much it had learned on its journey a year ago. Now, all it wanted, was peace. A quiet place to live, a corner of the world no one could find. Just like that mysterious craftsman's home. Mewtwo unknowingly slipped into meditation. As its mind calmed, deeper memories surfaced, fragments that made its brow furrow. A little girl, and several Pokémon. Something wet fell on Mewtwo's face. It reached out and found it was a tear. Tears? I have tears? What was that feeling just now? What were those memories? Vague and uncertain, had it really experienced them? Tears, when the body feels pain, they fall. But only humans cry from sorrow. Strange memories surged, tranquil and pure, from a time Mewtwo didn't recognize. A wave of fatigue washed over it. Hesitating, it opened a private message to Hikaru. I need to revise what I just said. The Calyrex plush triggered some strange memories. Is that normal? They feel like memories from right after I was born, buried deep inside me. Are those my deepest psychological scars? A response soon came. Can you explain in more detail? I'm not a licensed therapist, but I need to know your symptoms to help guide you. It's not my job, but you are my customer, after all. Since my product triggered this, of course I'll help you. Mewtwo went silent. After some thought, it disguised its identity, one it often used while living among humans. It slightly altered the recovered memories and integrated them into the backstory of that fake identity. I see. So you had a girl and 3 Pokémon as companions when you were young. And only after holding the plush did you recall them, but after the memories returned, you remembered that they all suddenly vanished without a word, right? Mewtwo, that's right. And I remembered her name. AI. Yes, she was AI. The name in its memory was actually AI number 2, but Mewtwo knew that girl wasn't a real human, and so, it left out the number. A designation like 2 would be inappropriate. Who was she? What was she really? Why does my heart ache with the urge to see her again? What is it? Nothing. Childhood traumas are often hidden by the mind, but they don't disappear. They become buried thorns in the soul. Did you know that forgetting is actually a psychological defense mechanism? It's one way we protect our mental health. It helps us escape negative emotions and pain, allowing us to stay emotionally stable. Trauma also leads to avoidance, avoiding places, people, and even topics that trigger those memories. I remember you once said you avoid speaking with other psychics unless necessary. That's also a form of avoidance. But, you aren't just avoiding psychics. From what I can tell, you're avoiding humans, or rather, strangers. Mewtwo was silent. That hit home. Thinking it over, Mewtwo realized it was true. It had traveled many places, met many humans. But even while disguised, it had always avoided crowds. It avoided contact not just out of fear of exposure, but because it truly felt distant from humans. If there was anyone it could acknowledge, it would be that boy called Ash. So the best solution is to forget these memories again? But the urge to see her won't go away. Even though I know she doesn't exist anymore. Mewtwo thought quietly. Forgetting is one solution, it protects your mind. But haven't you already understood what the meaning of life is? Mewtwo froze. The meaning of life? Who am I? These were the questions it had once obsessed over. But after meeting that boy Ash, it had found its answer. At the very least, it means I'm a being who can live on this planet. And now only the trainers who once helped it, and Giovanni, knew of its past. Who are you? Hey. Hikaru's confused response made Mewtwo blink and chuckle. It shook its head. Guess I'm overthinking it. Right, Hikaru was just a strange human with mysterious power. Maybe not someone who could see the future, but perhaps the meaning of life was just a common psychological concept. It didn't know much about psychology. I don't know why you suddenly asked that, but I guess my words touched something deep inside you. Let's say you have understood the meaning of life. Once someone finds that meaning, they not only feel happiness, they also gain strength to face any hardship. Even in the face of suffering, guilt, or death, they can remain optimistic. There's only one true form of heroism, to love life after seeing its harsh truths. A human once said that. In that moment, Mewtwo felt a beam of light pierce its heart. Not from the plush but from the words themselves. A powerful will, from far across the world, had reached into its soul and deeply moved it. Yes, no matter the past, the fact that I'm here now means it's behind me. But still, even knowing the truth of reality, why did it feel unwilling to let go? The girl's voice echoed in its memory. She once said, "Living will surely be fun." That was what the girl called AI number 2 had said. So, after everything, I want to give you something. Some tools. I hope they'll help you regain your strength. There are 3 ways to heal childhood trauma. First is forgetting avoidance. Shameful, maybe, but effective. The second is to confront it. Face it, step past it, and overcome it. And the third, do you want to see her again? If you could, wouldn't that resolve everything? I can't guarantee it'll work, but I want to give you a gift. Mewtwo's hands clenched tight. Even its breath faltered. Oh mysterious craftsman! Please, help me. Chapter 155. What kind of item? For the first time, Mewtwo felt nervous. It was a foreign sensation, this tension. The legendary artisan claimed he had no guarantee of success, and yet, he still dared to offer such a solution. Or perhaps wasn't it more incredible that he had any confidence at all? First, I'll give you something called Courage Pollen. If you were like the other psychics always trying to spy on me, you'd probably have seen the beautiful and unique Pokémon always near me, right? Mewtwo didn't know how to respond. Spy on him? Yeah, that had happened. Thinking about it now, Mewtwo felt a little shameless. After all, the shopkeeper had clearly said he disliked being watched. If he ended up like that poor Psychic Elite 4 member who got teased in the group chats every day, what a disgrace. Lying would go against its pride, but fortunately, Hikaru didn't press the topic and moved on to explain the pollen's purpose and that it could even be further refined. His Y-form Lilligant produces fragrant pollen from the flower on her head. Its aroma inspires courage and confidence. This pollen is known as Courage Pollen. The fragrance varies slightly depending on the soil she's planted in. With some refinement, I've fashioned it into a gemstone charm for easier carrying. This is the charm of courage. I also used a special carving style that helps soothe the soul and bolster psychic strength. Speaking of which, do you know the Pokémon Braviary? They're bold and proud warriors, fearless even in the face of death. They will fight to protect their companions, never giving up no matter how injured they are. It's their pride. I've embedded Braviary feathers into the charm, hoping you too can overcome your trauma, find your courage, and keep moving forward. If you don't yet have a goal, that's okay. Experience more of this world, like the young trainers do. Embark on new journeys. Meet new people and Pokémon. Learn their stories. And if you've already finished your journey, then I hope you can start a new life. Starting over and trying something new is a kind of healing, and if you find a new purpose through that, all the better. Second, I give you a white stone. It's called the White Stone of Gratitude. A legend says that if you carve your gratitude onto this stone, it will reach the heart of your intended recipient. You're grateful to that girl named AI, aren't you? You have something you want to say to her. If you'd like, you can send me a psychic projection of her image. I can carve it into the stone, and after that, you can inscribe your message of thanks. No matter where she is, even if she's gone, even if centuries separate you, your gratitude will surely reach her. Mewtwo's breath caught. Hikaru's words were like a dream. Even Mew couldn't claim to do something like that. Cross centuries? No. 10 years. 10 years would be enough. After all its journeys, Mewtwo understood this world had forces beyond logic. From that boy named Ash being revived by the tears of Pokémon, to many other miracles it had seen. I want to see her. I truly do want to thank her. Yes, gratitude. That's the feeling I've been holding all this time. I can finally say it. Please, help me. Mewtwo projected the memory directly into the device, materializing a photo. After a pause, it added the other 3 Pokémon partners from back then. They weren't like regular Pokémon. Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur each bore the identifier No 2. I'll do my best. And even if this method doesn't work, I can tell you other ways you might meet her again. I know a lot, though none are guaranteed. But if even one works, that's enough, right? Mewtwo smiled. So many ways to meet the departed, it muttered to itself. The shopkeeper sure talks big. Mewtwo knew Hikaru had returned from the spirit realm. He was no ordinary human. But to talk about meeting the dead so casually, did he think the spirit realm was a public plaza? And yet, AI number 2 might not even have a soul. Mewtwo couldn't say for sure. Still, it expressed its gratitude to Hikaru. Sorry for troubling you with just a passing question. I'll pay for the items. No need. Sure, I make tools to earn money, but some things are more important. Until the day you abandon my store, I want my customers to remember me fondly. Mewtwo smiled wryly. After encountering so many humans, it had come to realize, humans were fascinating creatures. After their chat, the bitterness swelling in Mewtwo's heart had faded. Aside from the sudden urge to see AI again, all that remained was serenity. And yet, its psychic power was surging. Psychic power is tied to the heart. The more isolated the psychic, the stronger the ability. This is true for psychic Pokémon too. But the purer the heart, the stronger the power becomes. That's why Pokémon like Mew, so pure and simple, have the most incredible psychic abilities. Mewtwo murmured, feeling a wave of drowsiness. Which was odd. Mewtwo could go days without sleep. Like many psychics, it usually meditated in place of sleeping. But it remembered its long slumber, the one forced upon it when it was created as a clone of Mew. Back then, it slept. Dreamed. And in those dreams, it saw AI, and the other three. Its memories were becoming clearer. Maybe, after all these years, sleeping again wouldn't be so bad. Before dozing off, Mewtwo used psychic power to draw the charm to its side. It was a gemstone, orange-red in hue, radiating with the scent of courage and peace. If Mewtwo had Hikaru's abilities, it would have seen. Crafted item, Charm of Courage. Description: a special charm made from courage pollen, ancient rocks, sunstones, and fire stones. Empowered by the Eviolite's blessing, it grants protection to its bearer. Intricately carved by a mysterious artisan in an ancient city style, featuring a radiant sun emblem. It strengthens bonds between humans and Pokémon and provides emotional resonance. Effect: greatly boosts the holder's courage. Instills unwavering confidence in the face of hardship. Inspires resolve and dispels negativity. Hope plus 20%. Willpower plus 50%. Courage plus 100%. A sun symbol. Just like AI said. The sun gives us light and warmth. Should I praise it? Mewtwo closed its eyes in contentment. In the secret cavern beneath Crystal Cliff, beside the shimmering mirror lake, it entered sleep in a meditative posture. And in its dreams, everything turned pink. Chapter 156. Check this FIC, Pokémon, Master of the Rain Team. Inside the forge, many already finished crafted items and unique tools were neatly placed. These tools had already provided Hikaru with a wealth of knowledge. But the task of creating sample tools was put on hold early. Instead, Hikaru began sculpting a statue of gratitude. It turned out that the strange customer among the group of dolls was its Mewtwo. From the moment the name AI was mentioned, Hikaru had already deduced the identity of the customer. After all, in today's world, only 3 beings might still know that name. And among the 3, only one had psychic powers. Who could it be? So hard to guess. Of course, it wasn't hard to guess at all. AI, a girl who had a major impact on Mewtwo's childhood. More precisely, the AI Mewtwo knew was actually AI number 2, not the real AI herself. It's Amber. In the first movie Pokémon, the first movie Mewtwo Strikes Back, Mewtwo's early days were shown. Mewtwo was born as part of a Team Rocket experiment. In a far-off region called Guyana, Team Rocket discovered a fossilized eyelash of Mew and attempted to create the most powerful Pokémon using it. Thus, Team Rocket enlisted the help of a scientist named Dr. Fuji. Dr. Fuji had a daughter named AI who had died young. Hoping to resurrect her, he cooperated with Team Rocket. He cloned Kanto's starter Pokémon Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur, trying to uncover the secret behind Pokémon's resilient vitality through cloning, aiming to develop resurrection technology. Dr. Fuji's research wasn't fruitless. Before cloning the 3 starter Pokémon and Mewtwo, he had already developed a consciousness clone of AI. This clone, together with the other Pokémon clones, was kept in special capsules. His ultimate goal was to give true life to AI's cloned consciousness. AI's consciousness connected with Mewtwo's, and in their dreams, they met the 3 Pokémon clones. AI taught Mewtwo about the world, the sun, the wind, sunsets, stars, the moon, and life, so Mewtwo no longer felt alone. In the dream, Mewtwo watched as the 3 clones gradually faded. Their bodies died, and eventually even AI No 2's consciousness vanished. This caused violent emotional waves within Mewtwo, and Dr. Fuji had to inject a large dose of tranquilizer to calm him down. Over time, Mewtwo gradually forgot those memories. With the help of the Calyrex doll, the deepest scars of the heart were slowly healed, and so those forgotten memories have returned. To wish to meet the departed again isn't an easy thing. To soothe Mewtwo's deep emotional scars, Hikaru crafted a charm of courage and gave it to him. Incidentally, this charm was the very first one made using an O-protective stone, and it turned out surprisingly powerful. Hikaru held the sculpture in his hands, examining its details. Crafted item, ancient statue, exquisite, a hybrid style of the ancient castle and sacred ruins. Description: a statue sculpted in imitation of ancient styles, depicting a human girl named AI No 2. Crafted using gratitude white stone. Whispering thanks to the statue may yield an unbelievable response. Effect: Echo of Gratitude allows specific individuals and Pokémon to recall cherished people and memories, connecting their hearts regardless of distance. Writing a message of gratitude on the statue will accurately transmit heartfelt feelings to the girl. When combined with certain other statues and items made from strong psychic materials, one may even see a departed person. Required combinations: Tapu Fini's statue, also carved with gratitude white stone, cloth of the spirit world / ghost gem. Tapu Fini, one of the guardian deities of Alola's Islands, it watches over the ruins of hope and possesses extraordinary power. It is said to allow the living to meet with the departed by weaving the worlds of the living and dead together with its mists. Hikaru stared at the statue and tried expressing thanks, but it didn't seem to work. Was it because he didn't have anyone he truly wanted to thank? Thinking for a bit, Hikaru glanced around at the Pokémon nearby and smiled gently. His confusion seemed to melt away. If he didn't have someone he sincerely wished to thank, then he would express his gratitude to the Pokémon around him. With that thought in mind, Hikaru gave his thanks. All around the forge, whether working or resting, the Pokémon felt a telepathic pulse. They sensed something from Hikaru's heart, though it was a little hazy and indistinct. Yuh! Dao Blade floated over from the nearby spiritual energy room, blinking its eyes curiously. It had no idea what Hikaru had just done, and then noticed the strange girl-shaped statue. That statue was made from the gratitude stone? Who was it? Dao Blade looked at the statue and heard Hikaru's voice. Do you have someone you wanted to thank? From long ago. Yo? Someone to thank? Dao Blade twitched its ribbons, rubbing its hilt as it looked at the statue. It vaguely recalled something, but nothing felt particularly important. Back in the ancient kingdom, it hardly had anyone it could consider a friend, maybe a few Pokémon at most. But then it remembered a fellow Pokémon it used to get along with. It was a mysterious Pokémon that could change form and even fly. Every quiet night, it would come and play with Dao Blade. Like a beam of light, it had brightened the dull and monotonous life of a sword. But sadly, their time together didn't last. War broke out soon after. The rest was history already known to Hikaru. Haha, the kingdom fell. A shape-shifting Pokémon. Ditto. Don't tell me it was Mew. Yuh, no idea. Dao Blade responded nonchalantly. It had no idea who its friend really was. They just met secretly to play together every night. Hikaru chuckled. You're so careless. And the tool companions you mentioned before, were they the goods carried by that traveling merchant? You mentioned them once before. Have you remembered anything more about that traveler? Dao Blade waved its ribbons. Yuh. That guy's face was so fuzzy. But the personality it remembered, greedy. Typical merchant. It wasn't even close to him, he just caught Dao Blade to sell it as an exotic novelty. But those tool companions, it remembered very clearly. A massive cauldron, a beautifully crafted sword, a mysterious jade stone, and an ancient scroll. Wait a second. Hikaru's expression turned odd. Those 4 items sounded very familiar. Cauldron, scroll, sword, jade. Aren't those the treasures of ruin? Hikaru said, opening the document he got from Lara and pulling it up on the computer for Dowblade to see. Yuh! Dowblade's eyes widened. Whoa, hold on, aren't those my old goods companions? How did 1,000 years pass, and now they're legendary? Even worse, they apparently caused national destruction? Wait, they survived? They weren't inanimate tools, but actual Pokémon. When Dowblade was captured and kept in that merchant's wagon, it used to talk with them constantly. Why did they never reply? Maybe they were annoyed by you and went evil. That's one way to explain lingering resentment, Hikaru muttered. Then snapped his fingers. Come to think of it, I mentioned Wochien before, so you knew it, huh? Small world. For Dowblade, that truly counted as an incredible past encounter. It flipped through the document again and again. At first, it had the bold idea of unsealing the four and recruiting them as kingdom powerhouses. But once it saw the legends of ruin and destruction, that idea was immediately abandoned. Better leave them sealed. Even if it considered them old acquaintances, who knows how they'd react to seeing it again? It's been 1,000 years, nobody remembers anyone. And with their history of destroying nations, Dowblade was just about to help build a new kingdom. It didn't want those four turning around and blowing it all up. I see. But I'd still love to meet them. And I'm curious about the sacred stakes that sealed them. What kind of craftsmanship was used? For a craftsman like Hikaru, treasures like the ruined Pokémon and the legendary Titans were immensely appealing. Meeting them or even scraping some materials off their true body tools might lead to crafting something extraordinary. Dowblade sighed heavily. Well, if its trainer wanted to see them, it couldn't really object anymore. Abandoning those former companions turned strangers, Dowblade began reminiscing about that playful partner Pokémon during the kingdom's days. And for Hikaru, this was merely a small interlude. He soon began carving the statue of Tapu Fini, sending Dowblade to fetch spirit-infused cloth from the ghost-type room. With the help of the spooky plate and the spirit world cloth gifted by Dusk Noir, crafting high psychic items had become much easier. When the statue was completed, a soft mist began to drift through the forge. Chapter 157. Crafted item, ancient statue, exquisite, a hybrid style combining the ancient castle and sacred ruins. Description, a statue carved in imitation of ancient styles, shaped like Tapu Fini. Crafted using gratitude white stone. Whispering thanks to the statue may yield an unbelievable response. Item effect interwoven worlds, can release a small fragment of the mist from the afterlife, creating a momentary intersection between this world and the next. When used with specific items, one may reunite with the departed. As the mist surged forth, Dowblade had already moved to guard Hikaru's side like a tiny knight of justice, ready to strike at a moment's notice. Was this another power of the spirit world? No, it felt slightly different. The afterlife. That's what the Alola region calls the world of the dead. And unlike other regions, the souls of the dead in Alola seem to linger near the ruins of hope. With help from the island guardians, one can meet the departed at any time. If this happened in other regions, Dusk Noir would have dragged you away on the spot. Hikaru muttered to himself, as he heard faint whispering voices. Something had connected with his heart. Both the statue of Ai and the statue of Tapu Fini glowed with a gentle, hazy light. He suddenly had a feeling now was the time to use the cloth of the spirit world. Placing it between the two statues, Hikaru and Dowblade were immediately plunged into a vision. It was a world of pure darkness, nothing existed. Suddenly, a golden halo of light formed within the blackness, taking the shape of a little girl. She looked at Hikaru and Dowblade as they appeared in the darkness. Hikaru sensed her emotional shifts. First, confusion, then surprise and disbelief. A swirl of emotions danced on her face. Tentatively, Hikaru called out, "Ai!" At once, like an electric current, her emotions surged violently. Yet Hikaru couldn't hear her voice. The mist then dispersed, and the strange vision vanished without a trace. Yuh! Dowblade had seen a lot of strange things in its time, but that scene just now was even more bizarre than the dream realm. It worked. We actually connected with the departed. But I couldn't talk to her, probably because I hadn't written my message of thanks yet. This part has to be done by Mewtwo. Just then, Hikaru heard Lilligant calling from outside. It turned out that when the mist had surged earlier, Lilligant and Grotle had come running to the forge, drawn by a feeling in their hearts. But they were shocked to find the forge shrouded in mist and somehow much larger than before. The odd scene had them panicked. Dorelli. Really now more dangerous tools again? Lilligant was worried and a bit upset, waving her leaves at Hikaru to complain. What if you suddenly vanished, trainer? What would we do then? Yohdao Blade floated up confidently, proudly declaring it would protect its trainer at all costs, but Lilligant scolded it. It's even more dangerous with you around, Doublade Senpai. You're always causing trouble too. Dorelli. Dorelli. Lilligant was not happy. Alright, alright. We've worked with ghost-type tools before, this one's just a bit more special. But with Giratina's power and the energy of the spirit world, I'll be fine. Hikaru comforted her for quite a while before Lilligant finally calmed down. After all, seeing a living person vanish in front of her eyes really had shaken her. She had originally wanted Hikaru to promise not to make such dangerous things anymore, but then realized many tool effects only become known after testing, and that made her mad again. If you master Aura, you'll be able to sense me anytime, Hikaru offered, raising a finger and successfully changing the topic. Lilligant thought for a moment, then nodded seriously. That's right, if she could fully master Aura, then she could always feel her trainer's presence. Grotle, say something too. Lilligant turned to Grotle, who after a pause, offered a cautious suggestion. Yeah. Unexpected events really are a bit out of control. He recommended adding more psychic and spirit-proof protective tools to the forge, and suggested placing finished tools by the door for testing rather than activating them inside. Grotle shared a whole list of safety precautions, even going as far as suggesting renovations to the workshop. This left Hikaru a little stunned. He always thought Grotle just knew how to plant flowers and trees. How did it suddenly get so smart after evolving? Hey. Not sure. I just felt like I should say that, and I knew it somehow. Indeed, Pokémon often gain more intelligence upon evolution. Some even have their personalities change completely. Hikaru calmed the two Pokémon down, then sent a message to Mewtwo. But there was no reply. Sigh. Maybe it's busy with something else. It was already very late. After experiencing the mist event, the Pokémon insisted on sleeping beside Hikaru. He tidied up the day's finished tools. Crafted item, choice band. Description, a somewhat particular headband. Boosts the holder's physical attack, but limits them to using only one move. Crafted item, choice scarf. Description, a somewhat particular scarf. Boosts the holder's speed, but limits them to using only one move. Crafted item, choice specs. Description, a somewhat particular pair of glasses. Boosts the holder's special attack, but limits them to using only one move. The three major choice items completed. After a busy day, Hikaru drifted into sleep along with his Pokémon. Grotle rested beside the bed, Lilligant leaned on Grotle and the mattress, and Dowblade hung from the wall beside the bed, murmuring softly about its past companions and dreamlike memories, its aura slowly turning pink again. Alola region, Pony Island, ruins of hope. Within the ruins, Tapu Fini, dozing as usual, suddenly sensed something strange. Its power had been used, far, far away. Tapu Fini had a mermaid-like black body and flowing long hair. Its pale blue eyes were framed with white eyelids. A white T-shaped mark sat on its forehead, and purple rings adorned its shoulders. It dwelled inside a violet shell, which closed into the shape of a swordfish's head. Tapu Fini traced the direction of that power's activation. If it wasn't someone from Alola, how could they be using its blessing? It felt a connection with the user? A worthy individual? They had caught its interest. Should I prepare a Z crystal? MT Moon, north of the World Tree of Origin. Many Pokémon lived in this area, but only one had long shared a bond with the now fossilized tree Mew. Mew. Mew heard a faint whisper from afar. It felt like someone was thanking it. But the voice was so familiar. Who was it? Mew didn't know. Chapter 158. At first, Mewtwo saw a world of pitch black, then gradually it turned into a wide street painted in shades of grey, white, and black. Houses lined the sides. The sun soon illuminated the world, filling it with color. Leaves fluttered in the wind, and after the sunset came stars and the night sky. As the dreamlike memory faded, Mewtwo opened its eyes and stared in confusion at the shadow before him. It looked like a mix between a deer and a rabbit, holding some kind of farming tool in its hands, but most importantly, what a huge head! Calyrex, such rudeness! Why does everyone say that? Wait a moment. I know you. Mewtwo sat up in shock, stunned by the strange scene around him. After the dream vanished, he'd somehow ended up in this bizarre place. Beneath him was vibrant green grass, too vibrant, almost like it had been painted with watercolor. In the distance were large fields and orchards filled with strange crops. The sky had cartoonishly simple sun and cloud drawings. Floating islands drifted overhead, connected to the ground below by rainbows. Where was this place? What is this? It's like something drawn by a child. Wait, are you a Pokémon? From that head, could you be Calyrex? That iconic oversized head, there was no mistaking it. From color to shape, it matched the doll exactly. Wait, the doll turned real. Calyrex, this is the Pokémon Dream Realm. I, was invited to reside here, so I suppose I'm half the master of this place. Calyrex stared at Mewtwo. Although it had never seen Mewtwo before, the aura of faith radiating from him was unmistakable. Its mouth curled into a joyful smile from the bottom of its heart. It seems you're one of my devoted believers. Fancy that you've manifested here in this land out of nowhere. You must be the Pokémon known as Mewtwo. I sincerely thank you for your trust and support. Thanks to you, my powers have recovered even more. I didn't expect to meet you here in the dream world. But, it seems like you don't know why you're here. Mewtwo asked anxiously, so you really are Calyrex? Do you know how I got here? Calyrex blinked with a blank stare and replied confidently. How would I know how you got here? I was just asking. Mewtwo. This Calyrex didn't seem particularly bright. Still, meeting a legendary Pokémon like this did lift Mewtwo's spirits a little. As it looked around, its gaze suddenly froze. This workshop looked a lot like that craftsman's place. Calyrex, this is the Dream Workshop connected to the Johto region's Traveler's Forge. It's owned by a mysterious craftsman named Hikaru. Seems you don't know anything about the Pokémon Dream Realm. Calyrex proudly pounded its chest. In that case, allow me to introduce this wondrous land. The Pokémon Dream Realm is a special world connected to the hearts of all Pokémon. Every Pokémon can enter it freely. This here is the deepest part of the Dream Realm, essentially the place of all Pokémon's dreams. Each Pokémon's dream is different, so not all have floating islands. The ones that do are special. For example, my floating island resembles the Crown Tundra in the real world. I used to rule Galar, as the king of bountiful harvests, so I'm located there even now in the real world. What's gained here in the Dream Realm is real in a sense, but bringing things out into the real world is tricky. You'd need to go to the Unova region and find the Entralink forest. Only in that mysterious forest can dream objects become real. Mewtwo had traveled far and wide, but this was the first time it had entered the world of dreams. It was completely stunned. An alternate psychic world outside reality? From Calyrex's explanation, it seemed all dreams were part of this dream realm it just never knew before. Mewtwo, this exceeds my understanding. I've been to many places, but never experienced something like this. With strong psychic power, can I travel directly between this dream workshop and Johto's forge? Calyrex's eyes glazed over. Only the owner and their Pokémon can use the workshop to move between worlds. And if you could do that, why not just use teleport? Mewtwo, fair point. Calyrex, you wish to go to Johto? I'd like to visit too, though I hear it's mostly ruins and ancient villages now. Mewtwo, I'm just seeking a peaceful life. Johto fits that it's secluded, unknown to most, free of human harm, hunger, war, and conflict. The farmland here in the Dream Workshop was well managed by Calyrex, with vast fields and orchards filled with pecha berries, but what was that massive cauliflower thing? Calyrex, impressive, isn't it? That's a new crop my friend Hikaru and I cultivated together. The soil here has been enriched by both of us. It can grow rare or difficult crops from the real world. I personally farm everything here. Working seems to grant me special powers too. All of this I collected the seeds myself. Calyrex was quite proud, then said with a more serious tone. There is no land without conflict except perhaps this one. It pointed to the ground beneath its feet. Here in the Dream Realm, Pokémon can live in peace. But just as it said that, Calyrex remembered Walking Wake, who kept scavenging everything. Ah! Maybe not always. Calyrex, since you're here, why not stay? We're actually recruiting Pokémon right now. My strength hasn't fully returned, and farming is exhausting. Mewtwo blinked. Recruiting, to help you farm? Are you the only Pokémon here? Calyrex, there's another Pokémon who lives here long-term walking wake. But it went out to invite others and, well, it's not great at making friends. I'm quite worried about it. I farm here to cultivate special soils and crops. Here, try this. Calyrex pulled up an orange-red carrot and handed it to Mewtwo, promoting it enthusiastically. My carrots are delicious. They're not giant or radiant crops, but the juice. The crunch. Unmatched flavor. Ah, thank you. Mewtwo took the carrot and took a bite. Mmm. Its eyes lit up. This tastes amazing. Even better than similar foods I've tried in human society. Calyrex, of course. I'm the king of bountiful harvests. Growing top-tier crops is child's play. Calyrex puffed up with pride finally, it could be mighty in front of its own believer, no longer a powerless king. Just then, a dragon's roar rang out from one of the distant floating islands. Mewtwo turned alertly toward the sound, and Calyrex muttered. Walking Wake is back. What happened to you? Walking Wake stumbled back, completely disheveled. Its mane was frayed like it had exploded, and wounds covered its draconic body, even its crystal horn was damaged. It glanced at Mewtwo, stunned by his power, but before it could even ask who he was, it began wailing to Calyrex in frustration. It ran into those 3 Pokémon again. Even though it had negotiated with them in other dreams, offering seeds and inviting them to live here, it may have tried dragging them in by force. Either way, fate had brought them together again. Somehow, those 3 Pokémon always showed up and chased it relentlessly. If it could do it over, Walking Wake definitely wouldn't have bitten Cobalion's horn. That guy always brought the other 2 with him to chase it around in every dream. Meanwhile, Mewtwo just stared in a daze. Walking Wake? This dragon looked extremely similar to the Pokémon known as Suicune. Click! The door of the Dream Workshop suddenly creaked open, drawing the attention of all 3 Pokémon. Chapter 159. Hikaru awoke in the Dream Workshop. This time, upon entering the dream, it seemed like he had brought something with him, the stone statues of Ai, Amber, and Tapu Fini. As he examined them, he realized they were the exact same items he had crafted in the real world. Bringing real-world objects into the dream world. Hikaru pondered. Could these 2 statues be trying to convey something? Floating nearby was Dowblade. Yo-oo! Dowblade spun its ribbons excitedly, flying around the dream workshop, curiously lifting the black stone on the little table with its ribbons. It had always heard Lilligant and Grodel talking about the dream workshop, which made it quite annoyed. After all, the first time it had entered the dream, it got beaten up. For a long time afterward, it never got another chance to come back. So this was the electricity conducting stone they'd mentioned? Then, what about the white one that served as a fire source? Was that in the forging chamber? Yo-oo! Dowblade held the black stone high, but it seemed, the stone wasn't too happy about being lifted. Hey? It doesn't like being lifted up? Roar! Suddenly, Dowblade heard a distant roar. A weak electric current instantly surged through its body. Bzzzzzzzzzt. That's the dark stone, Hikaru explained. It holds the spirit of the legendary dragon. Seeing yellow sparks flicker across Dowblade's body and its scrunched-up expression, Hikaru knew it had been paralyzed. Here's some paralyze medicine, he said, pulling out a spray from his dream backpack and applying it to Dowblade. Yo-oo! Thanks, thanks. Dowblade quickly placed the dark stone back where it belonged, its ribbons flapping in the air as it grumbled under its breath. So stingy. What kind of legendary dragon gets mad just from being picked up? It seems the dark stone's power has recovered a lot. With that thought, Hikaru followed the usual process and channeled power into the stone. He soon received a notification that the dark stone's mood had improved. Next up was the light stone, and he also had to check on Volcarona's egg. Yo-oo! Dowblade had already moved on from the dark stone. It had discovered something much more exciting, the treasures Walking Wake had brought back from various Pokémon's dreams. Though they were a chaotic mess, some of them were genuinely useful. Like a steel gem. Dowblade's eyes sparkled. X. It remembered Metagross bragging about how amazing Unwoven steel gems were high-end imported goods. It had been so jealous back then. And now? Here it was, in the Dream World's workshop. Just look at that shine and clarity, the dense steel-type energy within. Dowblade immediately wrapped its ribbon around the gem, then rummaged around and found a ghost gold nugget from a Cofagrigus' mouth. Left ribbon held the steel gem, Right ribbon the ghost gold like a nouveau riche, it excitedly spun in place, performing sword's dance. Doublade's attack stat sharply rose. Hikaru opened the door to the dream workshop. And the first thing he saw, left him stunned. Mewtwo. Hikaru stood frozen at the doorway, staring at the 3 Pokémon in front of him. Calyrex, covered in mud and holding a hoe, looked like a muddy bunny. Walking Wake, fur puffed and full of claw marks, resembled a scolded house dog after tearing the place apart. And standing tall with a serious expression, fists clenched tight, was the genetic Pokémon itself. Mewtwo hadn't expected to run into Hikaru like this. Its mind raced, processing countless options in an instant. Should it reveal its identity to this craftsman? Although it didn't know how this legendary craftsman had learned its name. Here, this is what you're looking for. Before Mewtwo could decide whether to make up an alias or speak the truth, Hikaru had already handed over the 2 statues. Mewtwo froze, instantly understanding everything. You know I exist. You know who I am? When did you figure it out? Mewtwo watched Hikaru closely, mentally constructing dozens of potential identities for him. Just a simple craftsman, Hikaru said with a smile, one who happens to know a bit more than most. The smile was genuine like sunlight, warm and free of any malice. Mewtwo remained silent, then gradually, a small smile formed on its lips. Yes, there was no need to worry about the shopkeeper's true identity. The fact that he lived in Shinto, a secret place in itself, already proved he wasn't ordinary. But more importantly, Mewtwo could sense the purity in his heart, an untainted soul that had no desire to manipulate or exploit. Of course, Mewtwo didn't realize this purity was a result of the Tranquil Pendant, which not only boosted Hikaru's resistance to telepathy but also made it difficult for powerful psychics to read his thoughts, thus appearing as a pure heart. Mewtwo turned its attention to the statues. It was moved. AI, or rather, AI No 2 looked exactly as she did in its memories. She had always been cheerful. But then, she disappeared. At their final farewell, she thanked him. And the other statue depicted a Pokémon Mewtwo had never seen before. That's Tapu Fini, a guardian deity of Alola. It has the power to allow the living and the dead to meet again, Hikaru explained. When these 2 statues are used together, combined with an item made with strong spiritual energy like the cloth of the spirit world, you can intertwine this world and the next, and meet the one you've longed for once more. He handed the cloth to Mewtwo. During testing, I did see the girl, but we couldn't communicate. Maybe because there was no real bond between us. So the rest is up to you. Go on. Write your words of gratitude, and you'll see your friend again. But don't lose yourself in the illusions. If you dwell too long, you might be trapped between the realms of the living and the dead. Hikaru's voice drifted softly in Mewtwo's mind as it listened in disbelief, a long daze overtaking its heart. It was like a dream. No, this was the dream world. AI number 2 doesn't even count as a living being anymore. Can I really see her again? Hikaru responded, anything that once existed in this world counts as life. And all lives will cross paths and give rise to something. If you had to choose a trainer, who would it be? Of course it'd be AI. In Hikaru's view, this Mewtwo was the one from the movie timeline. Though it may have lived in Cerulean Cave, it probably never battled Red, and characters like Yellow or Agatha didn't exist in this world. Which meant, the only trainer left was Giovanni. But Mewtwo rejected Giovanni's ideals. That's why it left Team Rocket. Once it regained its lost memories, the trainer it truly yearned for, was AI, long since gone. Isn't that, in a way, a question of lifespans? Hikaru mumbled to himself. And Mewtwo was thinking the same. Long-buried memories returned its first conversation with AI in that pitch-black world of the mind. Who are you? I'm just like you. A human? Am I human too? Maybe. Since you can talk. Or maybe, you're my Pokémon. Gripping the statue tightly, Mewtwo used its telekinesis to etch words onto the stone of gratitude, just as Hikaru had shown it. I want to thank AI number 2. I want to thank you. In the past, I asked meaningless questions in the darkness. Where is this place? Who am I? Who brought me here? It was you. You called out to me from the dark and taught me what cities are, the sun, the wind, stars, night, and tears, and life. Do you remember? You told me not to cry, because I was still alive. You told me to keep living, because life would be interesting. And it was interesting. I experienced so much. There's so much I want to say to you. So please, let me see you again. Mewtwo's voice grew fainter, like a dream. As it trailed off, a thick mist rose around the dream workshop. The two statues began to glow with a soft, white light. They were activating. Calyrex and Walking Wake both looked at the fog in surprise. They had been completely lost during the earlier conversation, but they at least understood that Mewtwo had also sought Hikaru's help. Now, seeing the statues' combined power, both Pokémon were awestruck. Well, only Calyrex was impressed. Walking Wake didn't care about such things. Friend, your tools have helped another Pokémon. Calyrex smiled warmly, proud to witness such a moment. In everyone's eyes, Mewtwo vanished into the mist without a trace. No warning. Only the lingering fog proved it hadn't been a dream. Their hearts are now connected, Calyrex murmured. Its eyes shimmered with blue psychic light clearly, its powers had recovered. And now, having gained Mewtwo's faith, it seemed able to sense Mewtwo's status. Psychic types always love peeking into others' minds, Hikaru joked. Calyrex turned bright red. And no. I was just worried about that Pokémon. It's my devoted believer. More importantly, friend. Come see the giant crops that Wake and I grew. In the mist. The workshop and the Pokémon were gone. Mewtwo wandered through the fog, confused and anxious, clinging to Hikaru's words. I can do this. I'll see her again. As it walked, the fog darkened until it became pitch black. Yet Mewtwo wasn't afraid. It stood frozen, gazing at the darkness. That darkness was familiar. It was the void it had seen as a child, its earliest memories in the spirit world. It had once known nothing. No self. No life. And then, a light appeared. Just like before, a gentle light pierced through the dark. It gathered, slowly forming the shape of a girl. She stared at her hands, then looked up at Mewtwo. Though time had passed, AI number 2 recognized Mewtwo immediately. And just like long ago, when they first spoke, their hearts connected. AI number 2 heard Mewtwo's words of gratitude. Mewtwo stepped forward, trembling, hardly daring to believe. Slowly, it knelt down. After so many years, it was speechless. Emotions overwhelmed it, so much to say, but no idea where to start. Tears fell in silence. It simply bowed its head and gently embraced the long-lost friend it had finally found again. AI, I lived on. AI smiled, stroking Mewtwo's forehead. You've grown up. I have so much to tell you. I've been to so many places. Living is really such a fun thing. Chapter 160. The enormous blue cauliflower stood out strikingly in the farmland. When Hikaru touched it, a detailed description of the vegetable surfaced in his mind. Mystic vegetable, radiant cauliflower. Description: a mystical crop cultivated through the combined efforts of Calyrex and Walking Wake. Originally a special cauliflower found on Simisage's head, it mutated after absorbing radiant petals and being catalyzed by the two Pokémon's powers. Calyrex's influence, having settled on the farm, further transformed it. Effect: radiant cauliflower possesses an extremely high quality. When cooked, it greatly boosts a Pokémon's physical strength, containing immense nutrients and energy beloved by all Pokémon. It retains some properties of the radiant flower, increasing the eater's mental energy. Meals prepared with it create a faint bond between the chef and the diner, enhancing friendship or affection. Also useful in medicine and poke block crafting, greatly boosting quality. This giant crop doesn't spoil easily and continues to grow. Over time, its outer layer may harden at later stages. It might even serve as a Pokémon shelter, a dwelling grown through specialized crop cultivation. Bonus: recipe for radiant cauliflower cuisine. If planted in larger quantities, may unlock special culinary/building techniques. It can grow even bigger. Initially excited by its effects, Hikaru was shocked to read further. The idea of vegetables growing large enough to serve as houses, it sounded like something straight out of a cartoon. And how could a single crop be used for both cooking and construction? Curious, Hikaru moved on to the radishes. Right on cue, Calyrex happily pulled up a carrot, humming the same tune it used before bestowing fertility upon the land, and handed it to Hikaru. Silver star vegetable, juicy red carrot, premium quality. Description: crisp, sweet, and juicy. Perfect for raw consumption, salads, or steaming. Combines roasted root aroma, sugarcane sweetness, herbal freshness, piney oils, and a woody aftertaste. Each bite is a gift from nature. Loved by many Pokémon. Effect, can be made into Calyrex's favorite snack, increasing fullness and friendship. Best served with unique red tea. Calyrex's ultimate comfort food. Enhances mood and draws Calyrex's attention. Sells at a high price. A prized ingredient for chefs, increasing meal flavor. Also grants meal powers. Calyrex chewing not bad, right? This carrot came from the floating island in the Crown Tundra. I thought the island had nothing left, but buried under the snow, I found these carrot seeds and a few other ancient crop seeds. They weren't as plentiful, but through my hard work and care, I revived them. Though grown in a dream, I've gained valuable farming experience. Still, I couldn't grow ice carrots or shadow carrots. I suppose the lack of snowy and ghostly energy is to blame. Silver star, hey. Silver what star? It's just what I call premium vegetables, Hikaru said as he stuffed the carrot in his mouth, cheeks puffed up like Calyrex's, eyes shining. Calyrex's recommendation was absolutely delicious. As expected from the king of bountiful harvests. Also, meal powers, a mechanic newly introduced in Generation 9, represented the power that overflows when Pokémon consume food. Different meal powers affect specific attributes and are categorized into 3 levels. Higher levels offer stronger effects. A single meal can contain up to 3 meal powers. In a way, it resembled Galar's curry rank system. But while curry's effects were healing HP, gaining EXP, curing status, and social bonding, Paldea's meal powers enhanced things like catch rate, egg power, title, shiny, size, and raid rewards. Dow Blade, imitating Calyrex, pulled up a carrot of its own. Staring at it, its eyes seemed to cloud with dreamy clouds of imagination. It was already fantasizing how it could slice the carrot into fine decorative shapes for a food platter. Calyrex noticed this. You must be a Pokémon called Dow Blade. I see, I see. So you're the first partner Pokémon of our friend. This is our first time meeting. Pleased to make your acquaintance. I heard from Grodel that you also harbor dreams of becoming a king. Dowblade's eyes widened. It began circling Calyrex, clearly assessing him. It had indeed heard about Calyrex from Grodel. As a king from distant lands, Dowblade regarded him with scrutiny. Yo-oo. With a tap-tap of its ribbon on its blade, Dowblade proudly introduced itself as Hikaru's chief minister. This meeting was a royal summit between 2 sovereigns. A diplomatic event. You even know about diplomatic summits. You truly are a Pokémon of the ancient kingdoms. But alas, I no longer have subjects nor land. The title of king is all that remains. Tell me, Dowblade, if our friend were to establish a new nation, where would you build it? Dowblade embraced its blade with a thoughtful posture, quickly offering its answer. It had been asked this question many times before, but still hadn't found a suitable location. However, Shinto wasn't a bad candidate. Plenty of Pokémon already gathered there. If viewed through the lens of ancient kingdom models, Regirock, Registile, and Ursuluna were akin to major feudal lords under a monarch, right? Each lord governed its territory and paid tribute to the king. Pokémon didn't care for taxes, of course, but Regirock and Registile helped Hikaru often, and Ursuluna had promised to dig up treasures as a tribute. There was even the apple orchard from the other world. Calyrex's eyes blinked in surprise. Our friend oversees that much land. So the Dream Workshop's farmland is only a fraction of his kingdom. Yo-oo. Dowblade performed a strange knightly salute, clearly unrefined, but was overjoyed to have Calyrex's recognition of their territory. Look! One king already acknowledges us. Surely more powerful Pokémon would follow. In the old kingdoms, many nations were established after receiving the recognition of specific Pokémon. It was called claiming. Of course, some nations perished in pursuit of legendary Pokémon's power. Dowblade had heard of one such kingdom, Pokelantis. It had earned Ho-Oh's recognition, but tried to imprison Ho-Oh in a Pokeball and ended up destroyed for it. Rar! Suddenly, Walking Wake's massive head barged in. Compared to Calyrex's crown, its own crest was just as imposing. The ancient dragon stared directly at Dowblade, flashing a bizarre smile. No mistake, despite the appearance change, these were the same twin swords as before. Having once crossed blades, Walking Wake now greeted Dowblade. It emphasized how much it had grown, acquired evolution items, and was ready to enter its next phase of power. Yo-oo! So let's get along. Dowblade was still quite proud of its past victory over Walking Wake. Sure, it had cheated in that dream fight, and Hikaru had done most of the work, but still. It had made a great effort. Just look at that opening cancel combo, wasn't that awesome? Rar. Walking Wake had no hard feelings. That battle remained vivid in its memory. Even if the old hunch had used items to fight it, the fact was it had lost. Losing meant respecting the victor. That was the rule of ancient duels. No fuss. No tricks. So, Walking Wake made a request to Dowblade. Could you teach me some nightly combos? I've been struggling against a tough opponent lately. Yo. Dowblade pondered. How could it ignore a friend's plea? A righteous knight must help those in need. Even Grodel, who'd just learned Bullet Seed, could use some new moves. There was a technique it had seen in the Old Kingdoms: take 2 steps back to find the opponent's position, then launch a rapid volley, followed by a marathon chase. For Walking Wake, who could breathe fire, maybe a strategy like Grease Oil and Dragon Tail and wide AoE destruction would fit? Rar. Suddenly, Walking Wake bit one of Dowblade's swords. Dowblade froze, then trembled violently, slapping its ribbons around in panic. Hey, what are you doing? Rar. With one sword in its mouth, Walking Wake stared intensely at Calyrex. Well? How's this look? Pretty badass, right? Now I can defeat those 3 Pokémon chasing me. Yo. Dowblade's other blade flailed in panic. Put my other half down. But before it could fully freak out, Walking Wake responded, don't worry. I'm the one panicking. I'm rash-natured. And with that, it used Dragon Claw to snatch the other sword. Dual-wield mode. Ah! That looks awesome. Calyrex chomped on a carrot and cheered, eyes glowing. Then it pointed to its tail. Maybe you could even strap 2 more swords back here. If we make a bond, Rain, you and I could forge a pact. Then I could ride you into battle, wielding a royal blade. Hikaru finished off his carrot, licking his lips. The flavor still lingered. Watching Walking Wake and Dowblade clowning around. What was that pose supposed to be? Walking Wake wants to be king of blades now? Double slash with both swords, hey? Giant Beast Twin Slash? You can't even learn Iron Head yet and you want to jump straight to Giant Beast Slash.
Additionally, if you would like to request novels and access my Google Drive where I have 200+ audiobooks, then you can join my Patreon. Link is also provided in the description.